Is drinking raw milk safe like RFK Jr. suggests? Can you reduce a glucose spike if you eat your food in, quote unquote, the right order? I'm registered dietitian Abby Sharp. I host a nutrition myth-busting podcast called Bite Back with Abby Sharp. And those are just some of the questions I tackle with qualified experts on my show. There is so much food misinformation and disinformation out there, and it can feel impossible to know what's real and what's BS. On Bite Back, my goal is to help listeners create a pleasurable relationship with food, their body, and themselves, which in my opinion is the fundamental secret to good health. Listen to Bite Back wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, I'm Richard Karn, and you may have seen me on TV talking about the world's #1 expandable garden hose. Well, the brand new Pocket Hose Copperhead with Pocket Pivot is here, and it's a total game changer. Old-fashioned hoses get kinks and creases at the spigot, but the Copperhead's Pocket Pivot swivels 360 degrees for full water flow and freedom to water with ease all around your home. When you're all done, this rust-proof anti-burst hose shrinks back down to pocket size for effortless handling and tidy storage. Plus, your super light and ultra-durable Pocket Hose Copperhead is backed with a 10-year warranty. What could be better than that? I'll tell you what, an exciting exclusive offer just for you.
For a limited time, you can get a free Pocket Pivot and their 10-pattern sprayer with the purchase of any size Copperhead hose. Just go to getcopperhead.com. That's getcopperhead.com for your 2 free gifts with purchase. Getcopperhead.com.
Message and data rates may apply. See terms for details.
Here's special guest host, Larry Fedoruk.
Good morning. Welcome to Friday. Welcome to the weekend. And you know, Mike Farwell is taking a 4-day weekend, really, as we all should, don't you think? So I'm Larry Fedoruk, and you got me today, and Monday as well, by the way. But here we are together on a Friday. School's out. It's the long weekend. It's Canada's birthday coming up, and we're 158 and feeling spry. And I'm having a good coffee morning, by the way. I make coffee every morning at home, and do you have those days where just someday for no reason the coffee is extra delicious? It's just I'm having one of those days where, man, I made a good cup of coffee this morning. Same as I made it yesterday, but this morning it's extra delicious. I'm having a good coffee morning. Speaking of beverages, it's just so top of my mind since I heard the story this morning on 570 News Radio that Doug Ford has allowed beer to be sold on these so-called pedal pubs, which I'm fine with. Imagine a pub with no beer. It's like, how did we bring pedal pubs to Ontario and not allow beer to be sold in them for these last 2 or 3 years? So I'm good with that. I don't have a problem with that. But the pedal pub itself is something I just heard about this morning, okay? And if you've been hearing our news this morning, you would have heard that these pedal pubs were invented in the Netherlands, sometimes also known as Holland, in 1997. And they came to Ontario 2022, but you couldn't actually have beer on them. So what is a pedal pub? Well, if you've seen these, and by the way, you can go to our website and there's a picture of it there, so you can get an exact idea of it without me having to describe it. But if you're not going to the website right now, let me tell you, you've seen those bikes where, 10, 20, 30 people all sit kind of in rows and everybody pedals and there's a person at the front who steers. And usually they're used for charity events and things like that and fun outings. It's that concept, except instead of people sitting in rows, people sit around a U-shaped kind of bar, and there's kegs in the bar, and beer is served at this little bar, and there's maybe 20 people sitting around the bar, and you drink beer and you pedal. And so you're sitting around a bar, so you're thinking, well, shouldn't I be pedaling forward? Well, the pedals are fixed so that you can be sitting sideways or differently from facing forward, but it still pedals the bike forward, okay? Now, there is a driver who's not allowed to drink, and the driver steers and does the braking and stuff, so you're actually in traffic, pedaling and having a beer. Now, I don't want to rain on anybody's pedal pub parade, but I don't understand it. If somebody can help me understand why you would go on a pedal pub, like I don't even like to sit at a patio that's right next to a busy street. You know, I like to be somewhat removed from traffic. That's number one. Number two, I don't mind like going for a bike ride on a beautiful summer's day and then afterwards enjoying a cold one. But why am I pedaling and having beer at the same time? I don't mind playing softball and going for a beer after the game. I don't drink beer while I'm running the bases. Because. So again, it sounds like it might be a fun thing to do once, but and so go ahead and do it. It might be interesting. But what I'll be doing is I'll be in the bar, and when you're passing by, I'll step out onto the street and take a picture of you pedaling and having beer on a pedal pub while I'm inside, sitting next to the big screen watching the game with a cold one. So it's a really it's the Netherlands, I guess. They see, here's the other thing about the Netherlands. Everybody has a bike. I don't think cars are actually outlawed no, they're not. But the bikes, everybody rides bikes and trains. It's just the bike culture, the bicycle culture of the Netherlands is among the biggest in Europe, if not the biggest. So the idea of a massive kind of bicycle, if you will, that everybody pedals, and it's also a little bit of a pub with a little canopy and a thing. And again, you're driving through the streets. You're not in a park or on a bike path. I guess you could do that as well, but you're driving around the streets in this thing, everybody pedaling. And the thing about if you've ever, not that I recommend this, by the way, but if you've ever had a beverage or two and then you ride a bike, or you probably shouldn't, that's drinking and driving, but I mean, or you engage in some kind of physical activity, the alcohol just churns through your system and you get it's an extra dizzy that you didn't actually bargain for when you sat down to have a pop or two, so the fact that you're actually exercising while, I don't know, again I get back to my original premise. Why would you do this? If anybody, again, it sounds fun to do maybe once and say I did that, but is that enough to have pedal pubs that are now licensed and count on Dougie to say it's okay? Dougie likes the beer regulations, doesn't he? He likes, and I don't have any problem with it, by the way, as much as over the years we criticized the idea of beer in the corner stores and that kind of stuff. I think it kind of worked out. You know what I mean? I don't know that it's worked out that well for the LCBO. Beer stores are fewer and far between and all that kind of stuff. But as far as the first year or so of beer in the corner stores, seems like it's been okay. Seems like it probably should have done it a long time ago. The buck of beer, it never worked out. For Doug, licensing these pedal pubs, I guess that's okay. That worked out. But anyway, pedal pubs. If you know why we should have pedal pubs, please let me know. Make it part of the conversation this morning. Larry Fedoruk in for Mike Farwell, 570 News Radio. Back in a moment. Larry Fedoruk in for Mike Farwell. And Mike is on a 4-day weekend, so I'm filling in today and Monday. I take it we're back. We're having some technical issues, but I take it I'm back, right? I'm back. Everybody can hear me. I can hear me. Everything's good? Okay, I'm back. I'm good. Well, somebody just said, you're back, you're good. Well, I'm back. I don't know. We'll see if I'm good. Well, we'll do a report card at the end of the show. How's that? But thank you for saying that. Yeah, you know, the other thing that's on my mind today, and again, it's just a silly thing, is the Jeff Bezos wedding. It's in the news. It's not in the news. I know we were reporting on it earlier on our news on 570 News Radio, but he's getting married a second time. The wedding is costing $56 million approximately. $56 million, and it's in Venice. He basically rented Venice for a week, and everybody who's invited is somebody. I don't think there is anybody who isn't a somebody. A nobody doesn't get invited. Everybody is a somebody. It's Oprah, Leonardo DiCaprio, Barbara Streisand, Tom Brady, all the Kardashians, most of the Jenners, the Queen of Jordan. Like, what is it? Is it the old myth that, well, all these celebrities know each other? All the rich people are friends. They belong to a club. It's almost like how do this group of people, this diverse group of people, get invited to a rich guy's wedding? Because they're all rich people. They're all extremely rich people. Nobody's staying at the Holiday Inn. You know, it's very. They basically booked these really exclusive and very private, expensive hotels are filled with these celebrities, and it's drawn a lot of protests. And one of my favorite, and this is the reason I'm kind of bemused by this story, other than it's a $55 million wedding, which is a little, talk about conspicuous consumption, is that people sort of anti-Bezos, anti-capitalist people have protested this to a great extent. And one of my favorite protests is they actually had to change one of the venues because people said, because, in a street protest in Venice, you're going to get wet because the streets are canals and water. So people threatened for the wedding route, they threatened to jump into the canal with inflatable alligators, those pool hilarious alligators that you can buy. They were going to get a bunch of those. People would jump into the canals and block the canal with inflatable alligators. It's hilarious. It's bizarre. If it wasn't real, they actually were going to do that, so they had to change one of the wedding routes. One of the banners, they put out like a 300 square foot banner in one of the town squares that isn't water, and it had a picture of Bezos, and it had big, huge block writing. There's aerial shots of it all over social, and it says, if you can rent Venice for your wedding, you can pay more tax. So I did a little research on this. The average Canadian wedding is around $20,000, 20 to 25. Some go up to 40, some are less. Some people spend nothing. They just, justice of the peace and done. But the average wedding is around, let's keep it at around 20 grand for the sake of the ease of math. So let's say a middle class, upper middle class couple, both people have good jobs, and they have an income of $200,000. And they want to get married. Let's say they spend 20 grand on a wedding, which is a pretty nice wedding. That's 1/10 of their annual income. 1/10 of their annual income is gone towards their wedding. Now, I'm not excusing Bezos, but Bezos is worth approximately right now $250 billion. 50 some million on a wedding is about 1/4000th of his worth. 1/4000th. So in that way, you go, oh, 55 million. Actually, he's spending less than the average Canadian couple on their wedding in some matters, except what gets lost in the fractions. When you look at fractions, is that it's not the difference between 1/4000th and 1/10. It's $55 million. It includes a $5 million, wedding ring, by the way. And, by the time you get the cloth napkins and the DJ and, everything else. And when I was thinking about Oprah and all these people going to the wedding, it's like, what do you bring as a gift? Like, you shove $100 into a wedding card? Like, you can't, I got you an Amazon gift card. What do you think of that? $55 million on a wedding, which is today, by the way, but it's like a 3-day event in Venice. And it's incredible. And June is wedding month. So if you see a wedding somewhere in Kitchener on the weekend and you go, oh, that's very nice. Meanwhile, in Venice, Jeff Bezos, Lauren Sanchez, $55 million to get married. I think it's his second, her third, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, this is 570 News Radio. More in a moment. Larry Fedoruk in for Mike Farwell. Mike will be back on Tuesday. I'll be back on Monday, barring any unforeseen circumstances, of course. Coming up on today's show, I hope you can stick around. We're going to talk about the avian flu coming up in just about 5 or 10 minutes here. The avian flu, it's spreading. And according to one expert, the world needs more wildlife rehabilitators. That's according to an article at the University of Guelph newsletter. And from there, Dr. Sherry Cox is going to join us. She also works with the National Wildlife Center. Interesting story she has on her own that will get her to relate, but she is going to take some time out from her patients to talk to us for a few minutes about avian flu. That's coming up in a few minutes. At 10 o'clock this morning, we're going to talk, and we have been talking about this, and I know Mike was talking about this yesterday, but it's of course the Call of Duty league championships, these are world championships. It's the first time they've ever not been in the United States, and they're in Kitchener for yesterday, today, and the weekend. And it's pretty incredible. And yeah, what it is, and you've heard about these kind of events, I'm sure, but it's here where basically there are the players, there are the Call of Duty players, but there's also the fans who go to a stadium, in this case, the Odd, and you basically watch people play the video games, which by the way, I totally get. And there's lots of examples of we society doing that, where it's something we can do, and maybe we even do, but somebody who does it better, we will pay to go watch them in a stadium, right? We do that with a lot of things, so why not Call of Duty? Anyway, we're going to have one of the local organizers, somebody who helped get the event here to Kitchener, joining us after 10 o'clock this morning. We'll talk a little bit more about what's going on there this weekend. I think even if you're not a gamer, or you're not a gamer who enjoys Call of Duty, it would be interesting just to at least go for a few hours, kind of get the buzz, get the atmosphere, get the idea of what's going on. I think that'd be a lot of fun. Anyway, more on that after 10 o'clock and after 10:30 this morning. We're going to talk with the Kitchener Panthers, basically the GM there. Shanif Harani is going to join us. Panthers lost last night. And they've got a whole set of games over the weekend, and hasn't been a banner season so far for the Panthers. But I don't want to say it's early, because usually Intercounty baseball, right now, they'd be about halfway through the season, I guess. But nevertheless, I almost say they're out of it, but it's a tough row to hoe, as they say. So we'll talk to the Kitchener Panthers coming up after 10:30 this morning. At 11 o'clock is our Friday 4 panel, where we're going to talk a lot about different things, different topics with our panel coming up between 11 and noon. Of course, 12 o'clock to 12 o'clock Talkback Hour. Next, it's the Avian Flu here on 570 News Radio.
Hi, I'm Richard Karn. and you may have seen me on TV talking about the world's #1 expandable garden hose. Well, the brand new Pocket Hose Copperhead with Pocket Pivot is here, and it's a total game changer. Old-fashioned hoses get kinks and creases at the spigot, but the Copperhead's Pocket Pivot swivels 360 degrees for full water flow and freedom to water with ease all around your home. When you're all done, this rust-proof anti-burst hose shrinks back down to pocket size for effortless handling and tidy storage. Plus, your super light and ultra-durable Pocket Hose Copperhead is backed with a 10-year warranty. What could be better than that? I'll tell you what, an exciting exclusive offer just for you.
For a limited time, you can get a free pocket pivot and their 10-pattern sprayer with the purchase of any size Copperhead hose. Just go to getcopperhead.com. That's getcopperhead.com for your 2 free gifts with purchase. Getcopperhead.com.
Message and data rates may apply. See terms for details.
Here's special guest host, Larry Fedoruk.
Oh, it's quite the story. Just caught me a little off guard. Usually leaving the Raptors. A lot of admiration for that individual and his dedication to basketball, not only in Canada, but in Africa and around the world, and his devotion to the development of the game around the world. So, but I guess, that happens just in sports. You reach a point where just time to turn things around, I guess, put it briefly. But anyway, we can get to that later on in the show. According to an article in the University of Guelph News, avian flu is spreading and the world needs more wildlife rehabilitators. Our guest is a professor in the Department of Integrative Biology at the University of Guelph, also volunteer medical director of the National Wildlife Center. Dr. Sherry Cox is joining us. Good morning, Dr. Cox.
Good morning, Larry.
Thank you for coming on the show today. Wildlife rehabilitators. That sounds like, what is that? Are we talking rehab, somebody who basically does what you do, fixes the animals?
Yes, pretty much. We're not all wildlife rehabilitators are veterinarians. I just happen to be both. But wildlife rehabilitators help restore health to sick, injured, or orphan wildlife. And the whole point of getting them back into the wild where they can behave like a normal wild animal for that species.
Now, I want to ask you all about that, but first of all, I want to hear a little bit about your journey because you didn't start out really or as a veterinarian. You already were doing something else and were drawn to this profession.
Yes, that's true. My journey is a little bit of an unusual one. I started in the corporate world and then took some vacation when I heard about the Prestige oil spill. So it was an oil, it was a big ship that was sinking basically and releasing a lot of oil in northwest of Spain in a place called Galicia. And when I went there to volunteer, I remember seeing this northern gannet, which is this huge, beautiful white bird, but it was covered in oil. And it was just on the edge of this fishing boat. It was November. It was very cold. We couldn't get to that bird. And that animal, along with 300,000 seabirds, died in that spill. And at that point, I thought, how can I go back to my other job when really there's so many animals that need help, in particular wildlife, because we are the stewards of the environment and they have no owners. So I have this desire to go back to school and dedicate the rest of my career to helping wildlife.
Well, it's a terrific story, and I'm so glad you're doing what you're doing. When we talk about treating wildlife, so often we think of domesticated pets, dogs and cats and so forth. Wildlife, we think of, well, it takes care of itself in the wild. So how does wildlife come into the care of someone such as yourself, for example?
Yes, well, fortunately, by a lot of very kind individuals. So it's the public, members of the public, pretty much that they come across a sick or injured or orphaned wild animal, and they take it to a wildlife rehabilitation center. So we are all authorized by the province, by the Ministry of Natural Resources, to care for these animals. And so the public brings them in, and then we try and fix them up, rehabilitate them, house them, feed them, get them back to health and then release them again. But pretty much it's the public bringing in the animal.
Now, the avian flu, let's talk about that. What is it? My understanding is there's not one avian flu, just like there's not one human flu, that there are different strains of it and so forth?
Yeah, so this most recent one, in fact, I just got back last night from the International Avian Influenza Conference in Newfoundland, where I presented some of our research on some fox kits that we discovered had avian influenza. But like all influenza viruses, they can mutate and cause issues, obviously, in animals. And they don't always cause the issues in the same animal, but this particular strain was very problematic. It was the first case was discovered actually in Newfoundland in December of 2021, and it quickly spread across Canada, the United States, and really globally. It caused, millions of animals have died from this disease. So it's it can be very fatal to a lot of birds. So far, fortunately, we haven't seen it transmit to a lot of humans, but it is possible, and that's why it is such a worry.
And how does it spread? Bird to bird, or it can spread to other animals as well?
It can. In the case of bird to bird, it spread through secretion, so it's aerosolized, but also spread in the feces as well. And so birds that are in close contact with one another can get infected, but they can also get infected. And this is how we're discovering the mammals are getting infected for the most part, by consuming an infected, dead or dying bird. And so let's say there's for example, a goose that has avian influenza and it's died in a field. If a fox consumes that infected bird, it can then develop, it has contracted avian influenza. It shows up a little bit differently in terms of clinical signs in the mammals that we have seen anyway at our center.
I mean, is this one of the concerns why, chicken processing farms are shut down in some cases and things like that, that it makes the jump to them?
Exactly. So because of how contagious it is from bird to bird, if a poultry farm was infected, it'll spread very quickly within that poultry barn and cause mass die-offs. And so it is an economical issue for this country, just in terms of the poultry farm. But yes, strict quarantine is really the key.
Right. And then again, if we consume the chicken, even if it's, I guess, cooked, we risk catching it that way. Is that a thing?
No, not as humans.
No? Okay.
If it's cooked, because heat actually inactivates the virus. So it's not that difficult of a virus to kill with appropriate disinfectants and heat. It's just more it will wipe out all of the chickens. So it's an economical loss as well to the farmer. But certainly, people who have pet birds or backyard flocks, you want to make sure that you're taking care to protect those animals too.
We started this conversation from the article saying we need more wildlife rehabilitators. What do you mean? We need more veterinarians? We need more people getting into the field? Is that what you mean?
We need more people helping sick, injured, and orphan wildlife, not just in this province, but, across the country. And it's very difficult because, as you said early on in the introduction, I'm a volunteer medical director. We rely on donations. So at the National Wildlife Center, for example, we're all volunteers. And so that's hard. It's hard to make a living when you're volunteering all the time. But because of the work we do, there are very few of us who are trained to help these animals. And there are so many animals that need help. We opened this new hospital about 8 weeks ago, and we're full. We've seen over 500 sick, injured, and orphaned wild animals within 8 weeks. It's just, there's a lot of need to help wildlife, and not a lot of people trained.
So, can people volunteer untrained and receive some sort of training as they begin? I mean, because I imagine Absolutely. You need all kinds of things done.
Yes. Absolutely. And that's how most people start out. Years ago, I started out by fostering, so by helping some orphaned animals for a wildlife center. And absolutely, people can volunteer with different wildlife rehabilitation centers. they can go to the Ministry of Natural Resources website and search for wildlife rehabilitator, and it comes up with a list, and they can reach out to them and volunteer with any of the centers.
All right. Dr. Cox, thank you for the work you do, and thank you for your time today. I appreciate it.
Thanks very much, Larry. Have a great day.
You too. Dr. Sherry Cox is at the University of Guelph in integrative biology, professor there, and also volunteer medical director of the National Wildlife Center. More in a moment. This is 570 News Radio.
The first case was discovered actually in Newfoundland in December of 2021, and it quickly spread across Canada, the United States, and really globally. And it caused, millions of animals have died from this disease. So it can be very fatal to a lot of birds. So far, unfortunately, we haven't seen it transmit to a lot of humans, but it is possible, and that's why it is such a worry.
I'm Larry Fedorkin for Mike Farwell today, and that was part of my conversation with Dr. Sherry Cox, the University of Guelph professor in integrative biology, also a volunteer medical director of the National Wildlife Center. And as she said, we're all volunteers at the National Wildlife Center. And what she had done is contributed to an article, University of Guelph News, that we saw that said we need more wildlife rehabilitators. In other words, certainly more veterinarians, but also just volunteers. She's a volunteer director. Everybody's a volunteer. It's different than being a veterinarian in business where people pay for the better health of their pets, their dogs and cats and birds and so on. When wildlife needs, and I'm interested in that part of the story as well. And we talked a little bit about it with Dr. Sherry Cox. It's really the public, she said, that if they spot an animal in the wild that needs help, that they bring it in to the wildlife center or somewhere where it can be treated, rehabilitated, in other words, brought back to health, and then released back into the wild. And I asked her about that because I don't know, is that something you would do? Like, certainly if you have a pet and the pet is not well, you take it to a doctor, take it to a vet. And the animal clinic, right? And you seek some assistance. If you see limping raccoon, I'm not being flip here. I'm just saying when you see, if you saw a wild animal in distress, geez, I don't know. Would you just kind of think, well, it's nature, leave it to the wild, But some people don't. I guess they're able to somehow safely take these animals to a place where they can get rehab, get healthy again. But it's quite the thing. Normally, I guess you're told that, especially with avian flu these last few years, that if you see, for example, a bird, well, certainly a dead bird, you're not supposed to touch it. You're supposed to call somebody and they know how to properly pick it up. But if you see an animal in distress like that, it's a wild animal that, my understanding always was you're not really supposed to approach it, that you're supposed to call somebody and maybe, I guess, the city or their animal services or whoever come pick it up and maybe they take it to rehab. But generally, Dr. Cox said, it's members of the public who bring in these animals and they get rehabbed and put back into the wild. And certainly in the avian flu can jump to other animals. And I guess we're talking, in the case, if you go to the University of Guelph News and read the article, they talk, sort of about foxes. I guess coyotes would be in that category as well, where they're carnivores and they consume other animals and things like that. And if they consume, that's one of the examples she gave. If they consume a goose dies from avian flu, and then a fox comes along or a coyote, whatever, they consume that animal, then they're likely to get it as well. Jump to humans, though, is a little tougher. It doesn't, we're generally not in close contact with, birds' nests, things like that, at least not without, if you ever had to clean an old bird's nest or something underneath a shed or an old garage or something like that, you usually have to, the gloves and the mask and the whole thing to do it, which is just a precaution you have to take. But yeah, bird flu, it's just avian flu, I guess we should probably call it more precisely, is spreading. And again, to Dr. Cox's point, If you feel that you would like to volunteer for the National Wildlife Center or any of the areas, go to the ministry and see where you can volunteer. And you think, well, I'm not a veterinarian, I don't know anything. As I said, they need different. Maybe you're the one that's going to make coffee at the beginning, or sweep out the cages or something. I don't know. They need anything. So to help contribute, because it's all volunteers. So thinking about volunteering, maybe you might think in that area. Larry Fedoruk in for Mike Farwell. This is 570 News Radio. We'll be back with more in a moment. Larry Fedoruk in for Mike Farwell. Looking forward to our 11 o'clock hour as well, where we're going to have our Friday 4 panel discussing all kinds of topics of the day, of the week. Of course, noon to 1, 12 o'clock Talkback Hour. Lots to talk about. One of the stories I'm going to be watching today is out of the United States. The Supreme Court rules on several key issues. So that's coming out throughout the morning. And is it relevant to us? Not really, except the one I'm interested in, though, is birthright citizenship. Donald Trump has been trying to get rid of that since his first term, at least expressing his displeasure with the idea of birthright citizenship. Birthright citizenship means if you're born in the United States, you're automatically a citizen. So the problem they think they have with it is illegal immigrants or migrants that sneak in the United States just to have the baby, and then the baby is a citizen, which helps them fast track their own. Well, it's that's not always how it works. Although that's their burr, that's their problem. They think it's out of control, and that birthright citizenship was never meant for that. What they say birthright citizenship was meant to do was to help enslaved African Americans become citizens after slavery ended, because America never had birthright citizenship until the 14th Amendment, almost 100 years into their existence. Then they put it into an amendment into their Constitution. And even as an amendment, it's very unclear as to what it means. So it's now, and the reason because I looked it up, I said, well, does Canada have birthright citizenship? And it's like, the answer is yes. Of course we do. We've always had it, because it goes back to jolly old England. It goes way back. There's a term for it. It's called jus soli, S-O-L-I, jus soli. It means of the soil, which was part of the common law of England, that said, if you're born in a territory in England, then you're under the reign or whatever of this particular king or prince or whatever. This is your area. That's where you're from. You're of that soil. And so as Canada developed, and most of Europe had jus soli as well, so that it was natural that Canada would have birthright citizenship basically since the beginning. Whereas the United States thought about it much later and put it in, and now they're arguing about it. So I'm watching it just for that. It'd be interesting to see if after 100 and some years that they would reverse the idea of birthright citizenship, that they would absolutely. I don't know. But again, if you're wondering, we have it. We've always had it. It's just been part of the way it is. The other one that I looked up, by the way, it's not that I know this readily, but I found it interesting, is jus sanguine or sanguini. It means of blood. So if you're jus soli, you're born in the soil, and you're born, so you're a citizen there. The other one is ancestry. So in other words, if I'm Canadian and we're on a trip and my kid is born in the United States, they're automatically a Canadian citizen because we're Canadian citizens. So it's through ancestry, through blood. But that's also a problem for some people. So we'll be watching that and other stories. More in a moment. This is 570 News Radio.
Hi, I'm Richard Karn, and you may have seen me on TV talking about the world's #1 expandable garden hose. Well, the brand new Pocket Hose Copperhead with Pocket Pivot is here, and it's a total game changer. Old-fashioned hoses get kinks and creases at the spigot, but the Copperhead's Pocket Pivot swivels 360 degrees for full water flow and freedom to water with ease all around your home. When you're all done, this rust-proof anti-burst hose shrinks back down to pocket size for effortless handling and tidy storage. Plus, your super light and ultra durable pocket hose Copperhead is backed with a 10-year warranty. What could be better than that? I'll tell you what, an exciting exclusive offer just for you.
For a limited time, you can get a free pocket pivot and their 10-pattern sprayer with the purchase of any size Copperhead hose. Just go to getcopperhead.com. That's getcopperhead.com for your 2 free gifts with purchase. Getcopperhead.com.
Message and data rates may apply. See terms for details.
Here's special guest host, Larry Fedoruk.
Up a little bit after 10:30, our weekly feature with Waterloo Region Sports and Entertainment. We're going to be joined by the general manager of the Kitchener Panthers. Not the best baseball season so far, but that's okay. Still great baseball, and they got a loss last night, but a series of weekend games. We'll talk more with the Panthers coming up in just a few minutes, just after 10:30. Now, speaking of sports, and this is interesting because a lot of people, when you say sports, when you're talking about this next story, a lot of people balk. They just like, sports, come on. Well, hold on a second. It is just a major event at the Odd this weekend. It's the Call of Duty League Championships. The online and gamers of the world gather basically in Kitchener this year. It's the first year it's ever been out of the United States for this league championship, and a champion will be declared in the Call of Duty game. It's incredible. Our guest is Director of Sport Hosting, Explore Waterloo Region. Alistair Scorgie is joining us. Alistair, thanks for coming on today.
Thanks for having me, Larry.
How is it going at the Odd so far? This is a multi-day event.
Well, I mean, before we get into that, my head is spinning as a Raptors fan to hear that Masai Ujiri's out in Toronto. That's what I'm trying to wrap my head around right now.
Let's talk about that for a second, because this guy is heroic, in my opinion. What he does for development of basketball around the world, and took the Raptors to a championship, and I went to that parade, and it's a big move.
Yeah, and I wonder, like it was being discussed, if it's just a lot of change that's happening at Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment, and for one reason or another, it's time to move on. Either Masai's choice or the Raptors' choice. But crazy to think after that run that that's a big shift for the organization. Yeah.
Where do they go after a guy like that? But anyway, yes. Back to this other sport, if you will.
Yeah, Call of Duty Championship. So yesterday was day one. It's a 4-day event. So we'll be getting back to it today, this afternoon. Matches every day. There's 8 teams competing. And I would say, as someone who was there all day yesterday, day one was a pretty resounding success. Like, everything went as well as it could have. Toronto Ultra got a win in their first match, so the home team's off to a great start. We had a great turnout. Building was electric. People lined up outside the doors waiting to get in. So it was a great start, and hopefully more of the same today.
I've never been to one of these events, but I've certainly watched some of the YouTube videos of these events, and it's just an electric, pardon the expression, but it's just electrifying the atmosphere.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. Like, the building is just kind of humming all day, and it's a unique event because you have multiple matches. So first match starts at 3, and the last one wrapped up last night around 9:30. So it's almost 6.5 hours start to finish between the different matchups that are taking place, and it just never stops. It's constant entertainment. The show keeps going. They've done a really great job in activating the Odd with some of their sponsorships, the booths, merchandise, and entertainment. So whether you're in the concourse, whether you're in the arena, it just feels very alive all the way through.
It sounds to me like almost like a combination of like a Comic-Con and Super Bowl and a video game, all wrapped into one event over multiple days. Is it a round robin kind of tournament? What kind of tournament is it?
Not quite. So they call it a double elimination. So all 8 teams compete on the first day, and once you lose twice, you're out. So it's a bracket. It's an elimination bracket, but you have to lose twice to be knocked out. So everyone was safe on day one, but today There's some big decisions to make. There's a very strong, highly ranked team out of LA that lost on day one, so they certainly have some pressure to win today. But yeah, today starts the elimination bracket, and then we go through to Sunday, and Sunday's the championship match, the only one that day, and they crown the league champ.
About what time approximately would that be on Sunday?
Sunday, 3:00. So we start at 3.
Yeah.
Every day finishes at a slightly different time, but yeah, finals match is 3 p.m. on Sunday.
And is there admission? What are some of the particulars of getting to the event?
Yep. So if you go to the Odds website or KW Tickets, that's where tickets are sold. You can get a day pass if you just want to come for one single day of competition, or there are 4-day tickets available. The floor is sold out, but there's still bowl tickets that you can get your hands on. And then aside from the actual competition that's happening in the main arena, they're running a amateur tournament between the two other ice pads at the Odd. It's called the Challengers event. So that's amateur teams competing, coming from all across North America and even some teams outside. And it's kind of a miniature amateur competition running alongside the big one. So there's lots happening at the Odd.
I would think just even the walking around would be an experience. You mentioned all the booths and everything else, that it's just the atmosphere of just being around the whole thing would be worth the price of admission alone, I think.
Yeah, I found that yesterday as I was doing one of many laps through the building. There's just something to see everywhere you look. Every corner you go around, something's happening, someone's doing something. They've just really made the building come alive in a very unique and interesting way. It's a great learning opportunity for us as a destination when we're thinking about other events in the future. How do we create a great fan experience? How do you make everyone feel like they're part of the event, whether they're in their seat or not? And all credit to the Call of Duty League and Overactive Media for really doing a fantastic job in creating a great experience.
How did we get this thing? When it's Vegas and LA and all these places, not that we don't deserve it, of course we do. We're a great destination. But how did we get this event, first one out of the US?
Combination of factors. I think on our side, we've been preparing for this for a few years. It's been a lot of work to get ready to host an event like this because it's such a uniquely different event. And you kind of mentioned it. It's kind of sport, but also entertainment. It fits in this weird space in the event world. And not everyone knows how to bring an event like this together or pull it off. So a lot of work with our team, the team at the Odd and the city to get ready. We're also seeing a shift in esports where some smaller markets are becoming esports destinations. So you're right, it has been Vegas and Los Angeles in the past, but now we're seeing markets like Fort Worth, Raleigh, slightly smaller, but a good fit for esports. And in this case, the Odd was a really good sized venue to meet all of the requirements to host this. And then the last piece was the partnership with the Toronto Ultra. And it was, at the end of the day, their chance to host. And they had the opportunity to look at Toronto and surrounding GTA, Southern Ontario, to find the right home. And we were fortunate to be able to chat with them and come together and make it all work. So lots of different things, but it's been a bit of a road to get here, and we're glad it's finally here.
Well, I think it's terrific. And a semi-serious question, how do you make sure the hydro stays on?
Well, you know what? That's the first question that a lot of people ask. If you walk into the bottom of the Odd right now, I can assure you that there are more cables, computers, IT equipment than you could ever imagine could be crammed into a hallway and into rooms. It's just an astounding amount of infrastructure. So we've had to dial up the power and we've had to dial up the internet. Both of those things needed a little bit extra juice to get us through this weekend, but so far so good.
Well, congratulations. I know it's still a couple of days to go, but congratulations so far. And I'm glad this thing is on. I'm glad it's on in Kitchener. Alistair, thanks for your work on this. Thanks for your time today.
Thanks so much, Larry. Appreciate it.
Alistair Scorgie is with Explore Waterloo Region Director of Sport hosting the Call of Duty League Championships, and I can make the case of why this is a huge sporting event and a go-to and a must-have, and see if you agree with me. We'll pick that up in a moment here on 570 News Radio.
In this case, the Odd was a really good size venue to meet all of the requirements to host this. And then the last piece was the partnership with the Toronto Ultra. And they had the opportunity to look at Toronto and surrounding GTA, Southern Ontario, to find the right home. And we were fortunate to be able to chat with them and come together and make it all work. So lots of different things, but it's been a bit of a road to get here, and we're glad it's finally here.
And that's how we got the league championships for Call of Duty in Kitchener at the Memorial Auditorium at the Odd. That's how it happened, the short version of it. I'm Larry Fedoruk, and for Mike Farwell, that was my guest, Alistair Scorgie, Director of Sport hosting Explore Waterloo Region, and a lot of effort and a lot of work to get these world championships, these league championships for Call of Duty to Kitchener, when it's been in places like LA and Vegas and so on and so forth. But and Alistair mentioned it too, that often now for championships of this nature, a somewhat smaller city like a Raleigh or a Fort Worth or a Kitchener-Waterloo region is better to be in, basically. Easier to get around, probably a little less expensive than staying in downtown LA or Vegas. So a lot of mid-size areas are getting championships like this coming to their area. So, and it's huge. It's the gaming world. I don't think for those of us who really aren't in it, we don't really understand or fathom how big it is. We can throw around terms like it's the Super Bowl of gaming, but it's their Super Bowl. And I know yesterday, and I know when Mike talked about this yesterday on the show, a lot of people were saying it's not a sport. It's not sport. But I always go back to when, like Sportsnet Rogers Sportsnet, Sports Network. Well, ESPN was a little different because it was Entertainment Sports Network. But TSN was the Sports Network. So you're watching Sports Network, Sportsnet, and darts comes on or billiards, and you would go, is this a sport? No, it's a game. Sports has actual sports and games. Like golf is really a game more than a sport. The Olympics have three things. Like, what is the pommel horse? Is it a sport? Like, no, it's a discipline. And generally in sports, there are sports and there are games and there are disciplines. And that, when you look at it that way, you go, well, gaming, why would people go watch a chess match? Because people do. And they have a big screen that shows the chess moves, and you're watching two guys and, with a little board moving around the pieces because they're really good at it. And we go watch them play a game. Maybe not to the extent of, 100,000 seat arena, but, people fill venues to watch people play chess. I love to sing. I only sing when I'm alone because that's how I sound. But I wouldn't pay to watch myself sing or anybody like me. I'd pay to watch Miley Cyrus go sing or Celine because they're really good at it. We pay to watch people do things that we can do, but we can play hockey. We're in a league, but we go pay to watch the Rangers or the Maple Leafs or whomever, So it's when people's really good at, they love gaming, and then the really good people play the game, in this case, Call of Duty, sure. It makes perfect sense to me that these people can fill an arena and are filling the Odd this weekend to watch them play a video game. To me, it makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense. Although I'm not a gamer, but I'm also not a big football fan. So I wouldn't necessarily pay to go watch football, but I understand that people do. To me, it's the parallel is there. Do you agree? Disagree? Mm-hmm. Larry Fedorkin from Mike Farwell. Be a sport. This is 570 News Radio. Back in a moment. I'm Larry Fedorkin, sitting in for Mike Farwell today and on Monday. Mike's getting a 4-day weekend, as we all should. If you just joined us, we're talking about the Call of Duty League Championships at the Odd. Great event for Kitchener to have. It's, eyes of the world. And when Call of Duty and these championships, these annual championships, and here they are in Kitchener, world-class event. It surely is. Hard for some people to accept. And again, the discussion of, it's video games. Aren't we trying to get kids away from screens and video games? And why are we encouraging this? There is that. I can see the validity of that argument as well. Although, you get, it's like anything. People get involved and they get good at it. And, the old argument is like, you're in your room playing video games. You'll never amount to anything. Yeah, well, we just won the championships for X number of dollars. There's money in it now. So it is kind of a pursuit of career. But it's like anything. It's in moderation. Everything in moderation, including moderation, I guess. But I don't know. We're going to discuss. I have that as one of my topics on our Friday 4 panel coming up at 11 o'clock this morning. I want to talk about Canada and Canada's new role and in the world, which I think we have one now. I think it's called the adult in the room. I think that's what people are looking to Canada for. And as we turn 158, here we are in a new spot. So that'll be part of our discussion at 11 o'clock this morning, the Call of Duty. What else is on the list? Gosh, air conditioning in schools. Should we just bite the bullet and do it? And also this year, actually, it happened last week, but this summer, the movie Jaws turns 50. I just did a podcast about it. It's called Later That Same Life. I do a weekly podcast, and I did it on Jaws this week. So I'm full of Jaws information. I have a lot of it. And we'll discuss the fact that, as one critic said, Jaws came out 50 years ago and we never got over it, which is probably true. So that's coming up at 11 o'clock. Next, it's Kitchener Panthers baseball. We'll talk about that when we return here on 570 News Radio.
Hi, I'm Richard Karn, and you may have seen me on TV talking about the world's #1 expandable garden hose. Well, the brand new Pocket Hose Copperhead with Pocket Pivot is here, and it's a total game changer. Old-fashioned hoses get kinks and creases at the spigot, but the Copperhead's Pocket Pivot swivels 360 degrees for full water flow and freedom to water with ease all around your home. When you're all done, this rust-proof anti-burst hose shrinks back down to pocket size for effortless handling and tidy storage. Plus, your super light and ultra-durable Pocket Hose Copperhead is backed with a 10-year warranty. What could be better than that? I'll tell you what, an exciting exclusive offer just for you.
For a limited time, you can get a free pocket pivot and their 10-pattern sprayer with the purchase of any size Copperhead hose. Just go to getcopperhead.com. That's getcopperhead.com for your 2 free gifts with purchase. Getcopperhead.com.
Message and data rates may apply. See terms for details.
Here's special guest host, Larry Fedorkin.
Thank you for having me back on 570 News Radio as Mike takes a 4-day weekend. So I'm back on Monday as well. Being Friday, we'll have our Friday 4 panel between 11 and noon today. And as we do every day at noon, the 12 o'clock Talkback Hour, where we throw it all to you. It's all up to you. What do you want to talk about? I got a few suggestions, but you may have some as well. So it's your choice. 12 o'clock Talkback Hour between noon and 1 o'clock. Go Jays Go. You can hear the Jays game tonight at 7 o'clock. Go Panthers Go. Kitchener Panthers had a loss last night, but they got a full weekend schedule ahead. Joining us for our weekly Waterloo Region Sports Entertainment segment is the general manager of the Kitchener Panthers. Shanif Harani is joining us. Shanif, thank you for coming on the show.
Morning, Larry.
Where are we in the intercounty baseball? I think we're about halfway through the season, approximately.
Yes, we are. I believe we're about 3 games away from the halfway point.
And you got 3 games this weekend, basically.
We do, or we have three road games actually coming up. So we're on the road Saturday against Chatham-Kent tomorrow, and then we're also on the road Sunday against Brantford, and then we play Canada Day at Guelph on Tuesday.
All right, and when are you back home?
We'll be back home on Thursday, July 3rd against Chatham-Kent, and that game is also going to be our bucket hat giveaway. So 100 lucky fans will win a Panthers bucket hat.
Ooh, nice. Love the bucket hat. Hey, how would you assess the season so far? Obviously, in the lower half of the standings there, but do standings alone tell the story?
I don't think they do. We came out strong, had a good start to the season. Recently, we've been scuffling a little bit, but we've seen a lot of things that we like, and we feel like we're very close to where we need to be. So we have some plans in the works to try and supplement our roster and get exactly where we need to go. But we feel like we are getting closer to putting on a good product for the fans, because the fan support has been great.
And it's a great, it's just a great game. It's a great product. So the season itself is salvageable. I mentioned you're kind of down in the standings, but you put a few games together and right back at it, I would imagine.
For sure. The unique thing about the league is there's only 9 teams, so standings can change week to week pretty drastically. The middle of the standings, I would say, is very clumped together. So if we can put together a good weekend here and carry that momentum into next week, we can definitely make a pretty quick jump.
Now, you say you've been seeing some things you like. What are the things you like that you've been seeing?
So our newest player we actually brought in, Runta Osawa, who just came in from Japan, has been a great spark plug for us at the top of our lineup, getting things started. He had another 3 hits last night, and that's a great way for us to set the table. And then also our pitching staff, they struggled a little bit at the beginning of the season, but we've been seeing a lot more of what we've been looking for, a lot more strikes being thrown, and they seem to be settling in. So they are ready to turn the corner here coming soon.
So a new player coming in, but otherwise roster changes. I'm saying it fairly stable for the coming weeks?
There will be some movement in the coming weeks. Our core group of guys are here and working to. They've been performing and working to get things moving in the right direction, but we will be looking to add around the peripheries, and any way we can supplement our team to give us the best chance to win is what we're going to look to do.
For those who don't follow, where do players? You mentioned from Japan, but where do players come from for intercounty baseball in Ontario? Where do you draw from?
So for our team specifically, we have 4 players from Cuba. We also have Runta, who I just mentioned, from Japan. And then we have 3 players from British Columbia, a player from Calgary, and the rest are all spread out throughout Ontario. But for the league itself, there's players from Japan, Venezuela, Panama, Mexico. It's a really wide range of talent, and it's really good talent as well. We're bringing in great players from all over the world.
And where would these players be in their own baseball aspirations?
So another unique thing about the IBL is you get a wide range of players who are in different stages of their career. So we have, for example, people who are fresh out of college who are looking to play professionally and continue to advance their career. There's also players who are on the back halves of their career but still have that competitive fire and can still compete at a high level. And then there's also players who are, I guess, in the middle of that, who've had professional experience, maybe had a down year, looking to keep playing and keep progressing, but just need some time to fine-tune some of their skills.
What I've always found fascinating about baseball is that in hockey, there's kind of a system, certainly in football and basketball, high school, college, pros, and in some cases in basketball, you can go high school to pros, or you can, but baseball, there's so many nuances and so many different levels that you can move around in. It's amazing to me.
There is. Yeah. It's great for the players. There's always an opportunity to keep playing, especially at this IBL level. If you have the skill set to be able to do it, it's a great way to continue your career against this is the best league in Canada. So the competition you're getting from the Canadian content in the league, as well as the international players, it's a great way to keep playing and keep getting better. And for a lot of these guys, end up signing that contract with that major league team.
Yeah, it is amazing. Specifically tomorrow, Chatham. You're in Chatham. You mentioned 3 games on the weekend, all the way Chatham and Brantford, and then Guelph. Specifically against Chatham tomorrow, what are you looking at? What needs to be done? What needs to get done tomorrow?
So for tomorrow, we're going to have Evan Elliott on the mound, former Texas Rangers draft pick, and spent time with the Toronto Blue Jays organization as well. So anytime he's on the mound, we feel like we have a great chance to win. So if he goes out there and does what we know he can do, and then our bats do what we know they can do, we can put together a good game and come out with a W tomorrow.
All right. And again, you said July 3rd is, give me that again so I have it right. July 3rd is the next home game?
Yes. Thursday, July 3rd is our next home game. So a week from yesterday. And we play Chatham in that home game as well. And that will be our bucket hat giveaway. So 100 fans will win a Kitchener Panthers bucket hat.
Most terrific. All the best. And I hope all the chess pieces work out and a great second half to the season to you and the team. Shanif, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Shanif Harani is general manager of the Kitchener Panthers. I was going to ask him about the Savannah Bananas. I don't think we had anybody from there. Have you ever heard of the Savannah Bananas? While we're talking baseball, we can talk about that when we return with more. This is 570 News Radio.
We have 3 players from British Columbia, a player from Calgary, and the rest are all spread out throughout Ontario. But for the league itself, there's players from Japan, Venezuela, Panama, Mexico. It's a really wide range of talent, and it's really good talent as well. We're bringing in great players from all over the world.
Great players, great baseball. Talking about the Kitchener Panthers. I'm Larry Fedorikin for Mike Farwell today. That was my guest moments ago. General manager of the Kitchener Panthers, Shanif Harani. Of the major sports, baseball is my personal favorite. And to watch, if I'm just for a walk in the neighborhood and there's kids playing baseball, I will just stop and watch. Sometimes I'll be like an hour, but it's just, and Kitchener Panthers is almost that opportunity to see pros, in other words, it's at that level where it's almost like you're walking by and there's a kid's baseball game, but the kids are older and really good. Is that a fair description? Because it's that level of baseball. The Intercounty Baseball League in Ontario is just, to me, it's completely underrated. And in some ways, I know they have fans and they have lots of fans, but in some ways it's completely sort of underrated baseball, right? And let me see, Chatham, Guelph, I'm going to forget somebody, but Chatham, Guelph, Hamilton, Brantford, the Toronto Maple Leafs are part of this league as well. And there's 9 or 10 teams anyway, and they play for from beginning of May to usually around Labor Day. So as I said with Shanif, we're about halfway through the season. I think after their 3 away games this weekend, we'll be halfway through that Intercounty Baseball League season. So it's still lots of baseball to go, and it's just pretty cool. Savannah Bananas, by the way, I want to say are AA ball in. I don't think they're AAA. I think they're AA. They're out of Savannah, Georgia. And I'm not here to promote them, but they just reminded me when we were talking, baseball down from the majors, the various levels of great baseball that you can watch in Canada, in Kitchener, and in the United States. Savannah Bananas, Savannah, Georgia, and they dress in bright yellow uniforms. That's the name. And the owners who bought it are a bunch of young guys, young rich guys, who kind of took the Ted Lasso model, of have fun. Everybody gets along. This is what we're doing. Let's have fun. And of course, they play baseball, but then they have all kinds of fun. Go to YouTube and just search Savannah Bananas and see some of the things they do. The players that go there, some on their way up, some on their way down, wrapping up their careers or still trying to get to the bigs. They just have a blast playing for the Savannah Bananas. They will do things like when they play regular baseball league games, it's serious in baseball and they're trying to win. Exhibition games, though, they have rules like if a fan catches a foul ball from the opposing team, it's an out. They have those things. They'll bring a pitcher or batter out in stilts, especially a batter, and you got to pitch strikes to a guy on stilts. There was a Canadian pitcher there who said, I know because I'm Canadian, one of these days they're going to make me pitch wearing hockey gloves instead of a baseball glove and a helmet probably. So, I mean, they just have fun. They had a fan appreciation day one time that was just a complete deluge of rain, just rained out completely. So what they did was they had the fans in the stadium in the concession and hallway area where it was out of the rain, and they threw a party for them, and they did all kinds of fun and games for all the kids and everything. And instead of canceling it, it's almost the way all minor league baseball should work. Yes, there's the game, but remember, it's a game and we're here for fun. So let's have fun around it too. When we're playing a competitive game, we'll be serious, but outside of that, we'll have fun. Now, the Kitchener Panthers do not model themselves after the Savannah Bananas, but it is still fun. It's good baseball to watch. And again, July 3rd is their next home game. They got 3 games on the weekend away. And then on July 3rd, the home game, which is the bucket hat night, which is the first 100 people get a Kitchener Panthers bucket hat. Cool. Check out Kitchener Panthers online for more information. I'm Larry Fedoruk in for Mike Farwell, 570 News Radio, with more in a moment. Larry Fedoruk in for Mike Farwell. Today is Mike's taking his 4-day weekend. School's out, baby. What did I say, baby? School's out. I have not been to school for dozens and dozens of years, decades. But ever since school, and I've had, kids of my own, they're growing up now too. But ever since got into sort of adulting, there's not a year that goes by, isn't it funny, where the end of June, I get, even, when you have jobs and you work July and August, maybe you get summer vacation, but you work, where there's not a part of you that goes, ooh, summer, at the end of June, where we all, at least maybe for a little bit, become a kid again, where we're like, oh, yay, school's out, summer. Oh, that's right. I'm a grown up. I work for a living. Oh, well, it was fun. Yeah, I mean, every once in a while they'll come up with an idea that school should be 11 months a year or even 12 with different vacation spots throughout or a different structure than kind of, September to June and then 2 months off in the summer. And it's a hard sell, I think, because the majority of us have grown up in this system, and it's just the system we like, where it's here's the thing. And when you're a kid, you get these glorious 2 months off. Maybe you go to camp, maybe you don't, maybe you just ride your bike around and read Mad Magazine, but you have the summer to do it, right? And then when you get older, then you get the summer job so that you be able to save some money and learn some responsibility and all that. And it's just I don't know that the structure will ever change, because we all kind of sort of love the idea of that so much, right? So, but like I said, I don't think a year has gone by where since school, where at the end of June I don't feel a little extra tinge of freedom for a bit until I realize I'm a grown up. Of course, now as a grown up, I'm also kind of semi-retired, so it's every week's a 4-day weekend. What do I know? It's like, it's a matter of filling the days. And speaking of which, I think it all started during COVID and during the isolation time, where it was like, if I had 2 things to do for the entire week, this is kind of what semi-retirement is like. If I had 2 things to do for the entire week, okay, I'm going to vacuum the living room and I'm going to rearrange my desk. I wouldn't do them on the same day. I'm going to do one and then I'm going to leave something for tomorrow. So I have, this is what it's like. It's just the pace. It's a different pace of life, shall we say. Nevertheless, coming up next on our Friday 4 panel, we're going to talk about Canada Day and Canada. As we turn 158, do we have a new role in the world? We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about air conditioning in schools. We'll talk about the Call of Duty championships, kids in their games, and about the 50th birthday of Jaws, the movie Jaws this year turned 50. So all that coming up on our Friday 4 panel next here on 570 News Radio.
Hi, I'm Richard Karn, and you may have seen me on TV talking about the world's #1 expandable garden hose. Well, the brand new Pocket Hose Copperhead with Pocket Pivot is here, and it's a total game changer. Old-fashioned hoses get kinks and creases at the spigot, but the Copperhead's Pocket Pivot swivels 360 degrees for full water flow and freedom to water with ease all around your home. When you're all done, this rust-proof anti-burst hose shrinks back down to pocket size for effortless handling and tidy storage. Plus, your super light and ultra-durable Pocket Hose Copperhead is backed with a 10-year warranty. What could be better than that? I'll tell you what, an exciting exclusive offer just for you.
For a limited time, you can get a free pocket pivot and their 10-pattern sprayer with the purchase of any size Copperhead hose. Just go to getcopperhead.com. That's getcopperhead.com for your 2 free gifts with purchase. Getcopperhead.com.
Message and data rates may apply. See terms for details.
Here's special guest host, Larry Fedoruk.
Welcome to our Friday 4 panel. One of my favorite parts of guest hosting on the Mike Farwell Show, especially on a Friday, is this segment, the Friday 4 panel, where we have 3 guests and me making it 4, and we discuss some of the topics of the day and the week. Joining us today, and I've been with this panel before. I know and enjoy these people. He's the owner of Negotiating Change and the host of Drew's Views. David Drew is here. Hello, David.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great, thanks.
Excellent. Also here, and this is where punctuation counts, Tricia Murphy is a small business consultant, not a small business consultant.
Hey,
Each
and it's Tricia Mumby.
Sorry, Mumby.
But my dog's name is Murphy, so you just made him come running.
Well, and also, he got the punctuation right.
I know it's Mumby. It says Mumby, and I was so caught up with my little joke there that I said Murphy, so shame on me.
You're my dog upset.
Also joining us, a former journalist and editor and instructor at Conestoga College, Bob Verbanek is here. Hello, Bob.
Morning, Larry. How are you?
I am good. How are you?
Not too bad.
It's Canada Day weekend, 158 years old. Let's start with this topic, and I'll start with you, Tricia. I feel like Canada has a new role in the world. Like, we're now the adult in the room, and that we're, because of this new leadership that we've taken on, it's almost like a new Canada now. Do you agree? What's your take on that?
I completely agree. And I honestly didn't expect it. Like, I didn't know that having the hot cousin run the country was so bad until we got this new daddy running the country. And it's just so much better. It's a breath of fresh air. Like I wasn't a ABCDEF Trudeau. I just, whatever. I'm not a political animal the way David is. And maybe I wasn't paying as close attention as I should have. But it is like we were asleep at the wheel for quite a number of years, and we just woke up, and he had great socks and great hair and didn't complain about living in that weird cottage. But that's really all he's got going for it. Looking back now, it's really a breath of fresh air. Like the funny things that Carney's doing that make me laugh are the things as a business person I really appreciate. Like, you're going to be a member of my cabinet. I expect you to show up to a meeting on time and prepared, and I expect you to participate like you would in a board meeting. You've got a very important job. I can't believe that had to be said out loud, but it had to be said out loud. If it had to be said out loud, we needed this desperately. He is moving fast. He's a serious person. He's respected around the globe. No one is talking about what he's wearing or his socks in the news, and I'm delighted about that. And I feel like we've come together. We're not hearing about separatism and other things. And maybe it's because, Parliament isn't in session and we don't have Polyev yakking and interrupting everything all the time. But I think it's right now, at the moment, I'm delighted with the state of Canada.
I am too. And I've heard this from Conservatives as well. And again, I was not an F. Trudeau guy either. And I'm not even sure how we got there to the F. Trudeau part of it. But this is just a welcome change, I find. Who wants to get in on this next? David? Oh, David, go ahead.
Well, I disagree.
Okay.
No, but I agree with everything Trish said, but that wasn't really how I was looking at the question. It's like, have we changed?
Okay.
And I don't think we have. I think we had this blip that is already seeming to fade away of we need to unite and get things done. And I sort of feel that we're going to be reverting to the mean very soon. And Mark Carney is doing everything he can right now to capture this moment because he realizes it's temporary.
Interesting. And you may be right. On Carney, though, it's interesting how he went from you'd be a good candidate in our party to you'd be a good leader for our party, to you are the leader of the party, to you're the prime minister, to now you've doing all this in what, 60 days almost? Like not much more than that.
Well, it's been a decade, to be fair, of him dancing with the party.
That.
But that's what corporate leadership looks like. If you're going to slot somebody into a job at a major corporation, a global corporation, that's how he would act. That's what he's trained for. He's not a politician. That's what we needed right now.
Well, and I think the important thing too was we needed someone who had relationship in the rest of the world too, and I think we saw it in the NATO meetings. We've seen it with some of the meetings with other world leaders, and sort of establishing a back channel, sort of back channel Trump channel. I think that's what's been going on too with Carney. It's like he's been sort of coordinating some of the world response with other world leaders on how to handle the toddler in the White House in the South, right? So I think that's been going on at least, and Canada has not given up its essential place of being hopefully a country where we kind of symbolize where we can still have people come together and form a country that is greater than the sum of its parts. I'm hoping that's some of the messaging that we're doing in Canada 158 too. So, and hopefully celebrating our country for once, right? We haven't done that in a long time too. So, I think we haven't done that enough in the last 10 years. I'm not anti-Trudeau, but I thought he was here for 5 years too long. So, and I think it's been enough time for us to switch what our perception of Canada is and insert it a little bit more.
I was anti-Trudeau. I'll freely admit that. And I'm finding myself loving Mark Carney for all the reasons that I hated Trudeau. Like when Mark Carney is asked a question, he provides an answer of substance. He doesn't lead and end and fill the middle with brand and ideology. And because of that, I find he's not as antagonizing to those who disagree with them, because he's speaking to them on practicalities rather than values. And that, to me, is the biggest change of all, is we have a prime minister who's speaking to us in practicalities. So if you disagree with him, it's not a moral judgment on you or on him.
Right.
Yeah, because he's not a trained politician. I when I was preparing for this, I did a little Googling and I found a Hill Times article that he's not prepared to be in Parliament. He doesn't know the rule. Well, great. Let him answer questions like a human being. Let him, if he has not become this political robot, it's really refreshing. And I love that you see that, Dave.
But it also has got him in trouble a little bit, a couple ways, and he could get into more trouble, like when he invited Modi to the G7 and didn't tell his caucus first. And so you had them caught unaware speaking to the media. There have been a few things like that where he's been caught out because he thinks he can move like a CEO, but he's a prime minister, and there is a reason they have to move slowly to manage all these constituencies. So I wish him well, but it could be a troublesome thing for him.
Maybe he should hire you.
Yeah, but maybe the rest of the party should get on board too and do something fast for once instead of the usual.
Yeah. Maybe they spend
politics
like he does.
Yeah,
because there's still way too much emotion and values coming out of their top tier.
That virtue at the end of virtual signaling at the federal level would be wonderful. It would be fantastic. Yeah.
Great discussion so far. It's our Friday 4 panel. More in a moment. Short break here on 570 News Radio. Welcome back to the Friday 4 panel. Larry Fedoruk in for Mike Farwell today with David Drew, Tricia Mumby, and Bob Verbanek. And if you're just joining us, we were talking about, vis-a-vis Canada's birthday coming up on Tuesday, 158, and this kind of new patriotism. Is this a new Canada? Canada certainly having a new role. And I think we generally agreed that, this kind of feels a little different than the last couple of years, maybe the last 5 years. David, you expressed an opinion that it's maybe a little short-lived, that we're going to be back to our old selves again. My question, I guess, is, does Pierre Poilievre get it back? Does he become that guy again, that burr, that thorn? Or is his time kind of over and this is our new peaceful selves?
Honestly, I think that's a question for next year-ish. Okay. It's way too early, because how well does he do in the by-election and what issues come up? Because it's one thing for the leader of the Conservatives to dodge the Alberta separatism from Ottawa. But when you're running in Bow River, in this rural area right between Edmonton and Calgary, it might be a bit harder to dodge. And I could easily picture the Liberals following time-honored tradition and not putting a candidate up. So they get to avoid the entire conversation and let it be a conversation between Pierre Poilievre, an irrelevant NDP, and whatever whack job extra right-wing person the Alberta separatists put forward, and he can't dodge that topic.
True enough. Bob, Tricia?
Yeah, I think it definitely would put him on the spot in terms of, hey, what's your reaction to this, right? How are you addressing Western alienation and / separatism, and are you treating it more of a legitimate concern, or not like Daniel Smith, just as a bargaining bludgeon every time she doesn't get her way? So it's going to put Pierre on the spot in terms of defining that issue for the Conservative Party, and the Conservative Party might not want that issue defined like that too. So especially federally. So
Yeah, it would be interesting to know if he's preparing for that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The other thing, though, is Pierre Poilievre's fate is really in Mark Carney's hands and in the NDP's hands. When Mark Carney has to start making choices, because let's remember, he hasn't said no to anybody yet. We haven't had a budget yet. So, at some point, people are going to start getting disappointed. And at some point, the NDP might actually try to win rather than being a moral voice. And if they get themselves back up, Mark Carney's in a very different game. But neither of these things are within Pierre Poilievre's control. So it's not a good place he's in.
He knows that.
Separate topic, I guess, but the NDP aren't really in a great spot either. I mean, I believe it's in their own constitution where they often, and they've discussed this, where do we become a more, not and say populist, but do we change some of our values in order to get more votes, or do we remain as the conscience of government? And I don't know that they're ready to have that conversation again.
I think there's some of their members that are on board with that kind of conversation. I'd watch out for what Charlie Angus is up to, and some of the other people along that line. And they're more populist pragmatists, and they are coming for the policy discussion instead of all the other superfluous stuff. So I think you might see the NDP being if they come more pointed like that, then yeah, the Liberals are going to have to shore up their left flank. So
well, it's interesting because Jack Layton doesn't come along all the time, and Thomas Mulcair actually led in the polls. If you remember that election campaign, he was leading early over the Liberals for a bit.
Tom Mulcair got the NDP their second best election result ever on his first time out. They turfed him. And then they let in Jagmeet Singh bring them down election after election after election and kept them.
Right. Yeah. I think they're ready to reevaluate that, and I think they're going that other direction. So it'll be interesting to see.
They and the Conservatives have the exact same problem. A Conservative in Nova Scotia and a Conservative in Alberta are two totally different things.
Correct.
Same thing with the NDP in Alberta versus the NDP in Nova Scotia. Yeah. They are totally different animals, and it's very hard for the center, so to speak, to hold together when there's very little agreement from coast to coast to coast on what makes you a Conservative or an NDPer.
It's our Friday Four panel, active and value discussion. As always, we'll return with more in a moment. This is 570 News Radio. Larry Fedorikin from Mike Farwell here with David Drew, Tricia Mumby, and Bob Verbanek. Anybody on the panel want to grab this? Anybody going to the Odd this weekend to watch the Call of Duty? I mean, the question is, should we be celebrating this giant video event, or aren't we supposed to be getting kids away from screens? What is the?
I can speak to this because this is actually something we as part of my portfolio over at Conestoga that we've been actually working on promoting a little bit is the growth of the gaming industry, the team gameplay. There's I don't know if a lot of people in Waterloo region know we're actually building a gameplay arena and making this as competitive sports industry. And it makes sense because if you had asked a normal person what entertainment industry is actually generating the most revenue right now, it's video games, much more than movies or TV or anything else. And this is a $6 billion a year industry plus. And they're like the reveals of new games actually have people lining up around the store. The Switch 2 just came out a couple weeks ago. People were around the block in some stores just getting their new systems. We're
and
missing
it's not even that good an upgrade.
Yeah, no, and we're missing there's a whole generation that is tied into this. This is their language, and I think this is like the Super Bowl coming to Kitchener for Call of Duty to leave its American sort of base and come to Kitchener like this it's a huge development. It's like the Rangers playing in the Memorial Cup in their own arena. So I think that's the impact of this, and it's actually that impactful for that sector. And I know what we're saying about kids, but that conversation is done. We have to move on to the new reality, right? Yeah.
It's not even kids, really. If you look at the age bracket,
that's true.
It's incredible. And in answer to your question, Larry, I live very near the Odd, and I am a little bit tempted to walk over and visit Nerdtown. I'm kind of interested in what this looks like. I think it's amazing. We're not getting the Amazon wedding. Venice got that, so I think we should take this. And it is bigger than the Rangers. When you look at the numbers, it's actually bigger than the Rangers playing the Memorial Cup in the Odd. It's going to be incredible. Yeah. And I think it's great. And I mean, and we can't sit on a moral high ground saying, well, this particular esport is violent, so we won't allow that. But then we would allow the Tetris esport. I believe the IOC tried that with the Olympics. They allowed Fortnite to be a demonstration game, but they had a moral conundrum with the more violent games. But the fact is that the horses left the stable. I think I read they have 100 million monthly users for Call of Duty Online, and I've never played it. I have Sudoku on my phone, and that's it. But I know from the kids I know, it is their social life. Like, they aren't just playing by themselves. Like, they talk to each other, they meet up, they meet people. They've actually gone and met people in real life from people they've met on these gaming platforms. And if that's what's going to be their social life, that's what's going to be their social life.
We argue that our kids are not being social enough. I have 2 teenagers in the basement on headsets talking to their friend groups and playing a collective game. That it's they still play outdoor sports and stuff like that, but this is the other thing they do together, right? So I think we've missed that. Yeah,
it's not an either or. Like, I know a lot of kids who like are doing football teamy stuff and then go home and shoot people in the face for an hour. Like, I find this a bit curious. I don't know how much of a trend this is, or whether Call of Duty will be replaced by some other gaming genre soon.
Probably.
But, it's like Comic-Cons. Yeah. It's like, really? We have kids spending that much money to dress up like that, to go pay money to go to somewhere. It's like, people have their things. The craziest thing I've ever seen is darts on TV. You see the crowds who watch darts? They're insane.
Stadiums, yes. Yeah. Incredible. Incredible.
Yeah, and people are renting out movie theaters now, not to watch movies. They're watching video games and tournament play, right?
If somebody does something well, whether it's a video game, chess, or sing a song, or play hit a baseball, people will pay to see it. And that's kind of what's happening. It's our Friday 4 panel. We'll return more in a moment.
Here's special guest host, Larry Fedoruk.
And on the Friday 4 panel today, small business consultant Tricia Mumby is here. Bob Urbanek is a former journalist, editor, instructor now at Conestoga College. And also with us, the owner of Negotiating Change, David Drew. That is our panel. School's out officially today. It's summertime. And for the last couple of weeks this year, we've had a bit of a heat wave, maybe last 10 days or so. And the topic of air conditioning in schools came up. And since the school budgets are just, being assembled and put together, I will ask the panel, is it time for the few weeks a year to just bite the bullet and just air condition all of our schools one way or the other?
No.
Okay.
I'd like to be the grumpy old lady on this one first. As a non-educator, and I know I have views, to me, really, that was a 3-day heat wave. And I looked it up. In 2024, we only had 6 days in Waterloo region where the actual temperature reached over 30, and they were in June. I would argue that the problem is our calendar and our concept of the calendar. Like, June is the problem child here. Maybe the school year shifts. Maybe we need to take advantage of the cooler months. This isn't going anywhere. The climate is getting weirder and weirder. It's happening. March break doesn't need to exist in the way it does. The amount of days off at the holiday break, is it that amount of days? Should there be 0 professional development days through the year, and they should all take place at another time when the instruction isn't happening? I think the calendar is the problem, not the few days a year that we need this.
Okay. And but before we go to the other panel, though, with climate change, and maybe we have days in September that are going to be unbearable, and then maybe days in May and June.
Yeah. So as someone who's I actually did some supply work in the last couple of weeks. I will tell you that how do these schools cope? Most of them are outside, especially the elementary ones anyways. So I spent a day where it was soccer, baseball for grade 8 class, and it was outdoor dodgeball, and there was all these other things too. So the educators already have a plan. They know what to do.
This story is a couple of years old, but it was in Toronto, a woman whose son had special needs and had extra trouble coping with the heat in schools. She bought her the kid's classroom a window air conditioner, and the janitor and the custodian installed it, and the board made them remove it because apparently you can't do it that way. You can't have just somebody showing up with money to buy air conditioning.
Yeah, it's an equity issue.
And honestly, it's not like the taxpayers are just going to sit there and say, well, I'm happily throw another 1% or whatever it would be onto my tax bill to pay for this.
Right.
The money's coming from somewhere, and I'm pretty sure we can find some fat, but I don't think we could find enough to pay for all the air conditioning we need.
No. And
that's why I don't
Larry,
think it's a fiscal problem. It's a calendar problem.
Yeah.
And a lot of places in the world have adjusted their school year and what it looks like for different reasons. And I just don't think we have to make choices. Like my teacher friends are just always telling me they can't get books. They don't have decent materials to teach. They like lots and lots and lots of issues in the school. These 6 days a year within this current school calendar that we hit 30 degrees, I think is pretty low on the list. If your child can't cope with the heat, it's always a parent's prerogative to call it a day for that kid. It's also like we can have snow days. Why can't we have heat days? And parents get frustrated with the number of days in the actual calendar year that their children are not learning anything for a variety of reasons, variety of breaks and days off.
Which was the whole last week.
I also wonder how much of this is going to go away over time, because I don't imagine the newest schools have this problem like the older ones do. No, so eventually we are going to run out of these older schools.
I totally agree. So I just feel like this is a blip in time. Yeah. I don't know.
I really like the calendar idea, but I also, to the point of snow days versus heat days, where we more and more, not just in schools, but in society, treat heat as much of a threat as cold. In other words, when we have heat waves, and mind you, this last one wasn't that big or anything, but when we do have extended heat waves, we do set up these for the general population. We set up cooling centers, we set up areas, we alert people, we check in on neighbors, all that kind of thing, because heat can be as potentially dangerous as cold. And maybe we just start thinking more in those terms.
It absolutely is. That's why you hear on those days in the news, like how to keep cool and how to watch your heart rate. And it absolutely is as dangerous. But, I don't know. Honestly, it's just a short period of the year. I really think the calendar is the issue, and the way we spend our calendar days in the weather that is decent.
Right. And it goes to the complaint. Don't spend it on physical plant. Spend it on the educational needs, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, I'd spend it on new buildings to have them better prepared, but the cost of backstalling for all these old buildings is not worth it.
Right.
Yeah. I would agree. I love the calendar idea, by the way, Tricia. I think that's a brilliant and simple solution right in front of us.
As a working mom, let me tell you, like a lot of working parents would look at all these. It's very disruptive to your life when all these PD days pop up in the first week of school. Like I think there's one a month. I know they're necessary. I know they need professional development. I've never really understood why it has to happen during the academic year. It's very disruptive to families and to working parents that just don't have the flexibility to roll with it. And then, the snow days and the large breaks, and it's all very wonderful for kids. I mean, hey, who didn't like a day off? But it's difficult. And it's an economic issue. People take days off, they hire care. It becomes an economic issue for families.
Yeah. As a working dad, I remember those days too. Very well. Very well. It was like, oh, you're off. Oh, again. I remember being on the bus from the airport to the hotel in like St. Lucia or somewhere. And we're driving down the street, and I look over, and we kind of stopped at the light or whatever. And there's a school, and there's kids sitting in a school. And I was like, it's February. I'm on vacation. And I'm like, how do kids go to school where every day feels like June? Because for us in Canada, June had a different vibe at school than any other month. But when it feels like that every day and the windows are always open and it's hot, I don't know, man.
We just have to get acclimatized to it. We sometimes forget. You get used to your conditions, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you look at these equatorial countries and they just shut down in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, there's adjusting the clock too. Like a lot of places start school much earlier, which I know is not good for lots of kids, but they adjust their calendar, they adjust their clock to the elements.
There we go.
To get through the day.
It's our Friday 4 panel. I'm Larry Fedorkin for Mike Farwell. We'll have more in a moment here on 570 News Radio. I'm Larry Fedoruk in with the Friday 4 panel. Tricia Bumby, David Drew, Bob Urbanek. What are these? I know what they are, but the pedal pubs, which were now, according to Doug Ford, will be able to actually have beer on them. So it's a bicycle that several people pedal, but you also drink beer at a little U-shaped bar while a sober person drives and uses the brakes, and you pedal and drink beer. Is this it? What am I missing?
That's it. You seem less enthused than you ought to.
Are you enthused then? Does I take it?
I've done it. It's fun. I think it's interesting. It's a real choice that cities make, because ultimately you are putting it out there that you are open to stagettes, hens weekends, all of that crowd. And that is a careful what you wish for scenario, because there are cities like Dublin that regret becoming the stag and doe capital of the world, because it's a different kind of tourism.
Yeah.
But that's what that flag is. We have pedal pubs. Bring it on.
Yeah, and you have to have a measure for how much testosterone you put on one of those things too.
Yeah. And it's wine too. They're in wine regions. They have bougie ones for wine. It's a lovely way to get around, and you're not just sitting obviously in a patio or in a bar. Yeah. And for the stagettes, like for the birthday parties and that kind of thing, it's just a look at me thing.
Yeah.
Makes for good pictures. It's for Instagram. You do it for an hour, you pay a fortune. I can't imagine in Toronto how disruptive it would be to traffic.
Well, that's
it's ideal in Niagara, but Toronto.
Well, Niagara-on-the-Lake, Ottawa, Windsor, and Toronto. And then it's going to be up to those cities to decide on hours, routes. So it's not going to be like just wandering through any neighborhood. It's going to be on approved touristy, I would imagine, routes. Yeah. So you're kind of promoting. I'm almost thinking of it like whenever I go to New York City, I get one of those 3-day tourist hop-on, hop-off passes. Mm-hmm. And I just use that as my public transit for getting around. But it's also really handy because you're getting the descriptions of everything you're going by. And you're like, oh, I got to come by and check that out later. I picture this being like something where it's like, oh, from Belmont Village to downtown to uptown.
And with an insulated backpack and a brown paper bag, you've just turned that into a pedal hop-on, hop-off.
Yeah.
Bingo.
Yeah. But hopefully you don't turn it into a pub tour, right? And as a former doorman / bouncer, let me tell you what those experiences turn into.
Yeah.
Well, all right.
Yeah.
All right.
It's good for tourism. It's definitely something that attracts a certain crowd. It's like, honestly, I went on a trip to Scottsdale last year, and that was on the wish. Like one of the girls I was going with, that was on her wish list. Like, does it have that?
Really?
That and the self-driving Ubers. Those are the big wishes of people going there. So, and I doubt I'm their prime market. So I think it's fun. It's a novelty, but I predict chaos and good for tourism.
I could picture. I could picture if I was in like Niagara-on-the-Lake and somebody's like, "Oh, this is going on," and there's a group of us. I could picture doing it.
Yeah.
It's not something where I'd be like, "Ooh, bucket list."
Right. But I think I'm the same way. I would do it once. I do want to move on to our last topic, and it is this.
There is a creature alive today who has survived millions of years of evolution without change, without passion, and without logic. It lives to kill. It is as if God created the devil and gave him jaws. Jaws. See it before you go swimming.
June 20th, 1975, Jaws premiered in 55 theaters in Canada and 409, I think, in the United States. And we've never gotten over it. It's 50 years old today. Did it change you? Did it change anybody? Yeah. Maybe you didn't see it 50 years ago, but you saw it since. And did you not go swimming for a little?
None of us have been back in the water since. So, yeah.
Don't even shower.
Honestly, I was a little bit too young to see it when it first came out. I don't think I saw it until it hit television.
And you went to Max and you got the 3D glasses. Do you remember that? You had to go to Max.
Jaws, yeah.
And you could trade in some cereal tops to get 3D glasses, and they showed it on 3D on TV.
And you say you were poor. I couldn't afford stuff like that.
I had to collect a lot of cereal caps.
But yeah, I don't remember it when it first came out that way. I remember watching it when I stayed up too late on a Friday night and it was on the movies, and I wet the bed so hard that night.
Yeah, it's still terrifying. I still don't. I'm still not into it.
Yeah, and it's all the music cues now too, right? So, but culturally, Larry, it was the deaths of cinema and the age of blockbuster, and that's what we've been living with for the last 50 years, right? So
now I just did and I agree with that statement, by the way, Bob, but I just did a podcast on this thing, so I have way too much Jaws information, but there are people who say that the year before The Exorcist was a blockbuster, and the year before that there was The Godfather, and George Lucas says Gone with the Wind was the original blockbuster. So I think it did change cinema, but just in a way that if you weren't a blockbuster, you were a failure. That's part of what happened.
And I just watched the original the other night, and it's actually a good movie, and it's a great storytelling, and that's something we don't see in the blockbuster culture now, right? So
it's funny though. Our kids, I showed it to my daughter once, and the fakeness of Jaws, she just couldn't even. It didn't even occur to her to be afraid of that. She just thought it was fun.
Yeah,
but we also, thought it was amazing.
Richard Dreyfuss, he's no slouch as an actor at all. One of his best works, as far as I'm concerned. Roy Scheider.
Yeah.
Again, I think Marathon Man was probably better for him than this.
Yeah.
But again, one of his best. And Robert Shaw. You just have these actors who, you never picture them being together. And all of a sudden it's like, wow, Cocoon guy, Blue Thunder guy, and Robert freaking Shaw.
Yeah, and that was Robert Shaw's last great role, and you could see the alcoholism dripping all over him too, right?
Yep.
So,
And apparently he wanted to give Richard Dreyfuss a good slap because he thought he was an arrogant rookie.
Yeah.
Much of their tension on camera was real in real life, but none of the guys you mentioned were first choice for the roles. It's always funny to go back and look at a casting process and go that they wanted Jeff Bridges, they wanted Robert Duvall instead of Scheider, they wanted Lee Marvin instead of Robert Shaw. Any of these would have been a good movie, but it's hard to imagine these days.
Yeah, I think
I'm just picturing Lee Marvin doing Robert Shaw's role with his Western drawl. That would have been interesting.
Yeah,
Cat Ballou drunk Robert Shaw on chasing the shark on a boat with Jeff Bridges.
I think the first person they cast was Bruce the Shark, and unfortunately he hasn't aged well. I think he's just become a tourist attraction. So,
although one of the things they said, which I never thought about till this year, was that the fact that the shark rarely worked well actually forced it to be a better movie.
Right.
Because the fake shark makes a couple of appearances, but it was scheduled to make a lot more. And because the shots were brutal and unusable, it forced him to create tension and fear other ways, including the wonderful score of John Williams. So the failure of the special effects actually made it a better movie, I think, in some ways.
I'd love to follow the math on who's still making money off of it, because the 50th anniversary marketing is incredible. I walked into a pet store a few weeks ago, and they had little tiny T-shirts that would fit my little tiny dog. Jaws shirts. Actually, they were colored shirts. They were kind of fancy. And I was like, I'm definitely buying that. And then I was like, wait, does my dog need a shirt? No. Does my dog need to look like Jaws? No. What is wrong with me? But just my Gen X brain just picked it up for a moment. Yeah. And then I went, who's still making money off of this?
And so just because I'm that guy, let's go down the path of, I think the worst sequel to Jaws was the one with Michael Caine, where the shark flew across the ocean, followed them to Hawaii.
The final one.
Oh my God, that was just so bad. Michael Caine.
Jaws 4, The Revenge.
David, are you saying he jumped the shark?
Exactly.
Oh, I think you just did.
It's the Friday 4 panel, back in a moment. I'm Larry Fedorkin from Mike Farwell with the Friday 4 panel as we wrap up. Mike, of course, has a 4-day weekend. Got today and Monday off. Anybody else taking a 4-day weekend?
No.
I'm done after this until after Canada Day.
Nice.
It just felt so weird that I just decided to work Monday and Tuesday and just keep going then.
Why do you hate
I won't
Canada?
work in February. Huh?
Why do you hate Canada?
I don't, but
you're going to work on Canada Day.
Well, nobody knew what to do. They didn't know whether we were off on the Monday or the Tuesday, so my calendar got bookings, and I had nothing else to do.
That's not patriotic.
I'm going to squeeze those meetings in between going to the Odd to watch Call of Duty.
There you go. That's a big weekend.
I should have rented out some rooms in this house to some nerds.
That's right.
Some nerds.
I think they prefer geeks.
Oh, sorry.
What are you doing on the weekend, Larry?
Well, I'm in for Mike on Monday, so I guess I'm actually working. But as a semi-retired person, I'm happy to work. I'm happy to get a gig here and there, So
cool.
So and I don't want to sound like I'm what's the word, patronizing here, but it's not work for me, which is why I always enjoyed being in talk radio. There's work to be done, but it doesn't feel like work to me. So I'm happy to be on Monday.
Cool. Great.
And otherwise, happy. I'm glad it's a fixed date. It's because it's a birthday, so it always should be July 1st, regardless of where it falls. And it's Tuesday this year, so happy birthday to us, and happy long weekend to all of you. Thank you for today. I appreciate it.
Happy Canada Day.
Happy Canada Day.
Yes.
Right. That's our Friday Four panel. David Drew, the owner of Negotiating Change and host of Drew's Views, which will not be here on Monday because it's a long weekend. Bob Urbanek is a former journalist and editor and instructor at Conestoga College. And Tricia Mumby, who's a small business consultant. That is our Friday Four panel. Coming up after our news break here, we're like we do every day, not just Fridays, the 12 o'clock Talkback Hour. Boy, there's a lot of topics out there. Some of the topics we covered here on our Friday Four panel, for example, Canada's new role, gaming in Kitchener, the Call of Duty League Championships. We got hockey, we got basketball changes at the Raptors. Oh, all kinds of things, but it's all up to you. We take your calls next on the 12 o'clock Talkback Hour. This is 570 News Radio.
Hi, I'm Richard Karn, and you may have seen me on TV talking about the world's #1 expandable garden hose. Well, the brand new Pocket Hose Copperhead with Pocket Pivot is here, and it's a total game changer. Old-fashioned hoses get kinks and creases at the spigot, but the Copperhead's Pocket Pivot swivels 360 degrees for full water flow and freedom to water with ease all around your home. When you're all done, this rust-proof anti-burst hose shrinks back down to pocket size for effortless handling and tidy storage. Plus, your super light and ultra-durable Pocket Hose Copperhead is backed with a 10-year warranty. What could be better than that? I'll tell you what, an exciting exclusive offer just for you.
For a limited time, you can get a free pocket pivot and their 10-pattern sprayer with the purchase of any size Copperhead hose. Just go to getcopperhead.com. That's getcopperhead.com for your 2 free gifts with purchase. Getcopperhead.com.
Message and data rates may apply. See terms for details.
Here's special guest host, Larry Fedoruk.
Take out the papers and the trash, or you don't get no spending cash. If you don't scrub that kitchen floor, you ain't gonna rock and roll no more. Yakety yak.
Don't talk back.
Just finish cleaning up.
Yes, we need you to talk back.
Let's see that
12 o'clock Talkback Hour. Let me repeat those numbers. 519-570-2545. These should already be in your mobile phone. They should already be programmed in there. 519-570-2545. 1-800-570-5715 or star 570 on your cell. Whatever you want to talk about, it's up to you. I have many topics that I can will suggest, but again, maybe it's one of those or something on your mind. We leave it up to you in the 12 o'clock Talkback Hour. Here's George. George, go ahead. You're on 570 News Radio.
Yeah, good afternoon, Larry, old buddy. How you keeping these days?
I'm keeping all right. How about you?
Good. It's always nice to hear you every once in a while when you come on. It just brings back the good old days and everything. Larry, I just want
all right, thank you, man.
I just wanted to make a small correction, nothing big. Mike is actually off for 5 days if you include the Tuesday.
Right. You know, that is true. And I know that. And I should have said that because Tuesday is because of July 1st, some different programming on 570. And yeah, so Yeah.
Okay. I wanted to talk about the bike thing, Larry. Could you see yourself riding that bike, enjoying a few nice cold beverages, and just driving around wherever it is you are, in town or out in Niagara in the lake? How would you feel about doing something like that?
I see myself doing that as a passenger, not having to pedal and also drink beer, not having, right? That's the part of I don't get, where in the pedal pub where I have to keep pedaling. I'm part of the deal.
What if you don't feel like pedaling? You're just enjoying your beverage too much. You just want to, like you said, just enjoy as a passenger.
I guess every once in a while, not everybody going to pedal is, I don't know how that works. I don't know how all the pedals propel the thing, whether you can stop pedaling for a bit or pedal faster or slower than somebody else. I don't know.
Right. And before I go one more time, Larry, what is your program called on YouTube, your own personal blog, I guess?
My podcast is called Later That Same Life.
Later That Same Life. Okay. I'm going to follow it again.
And there's an old, very old podcast called that. So you have to add, when you search it, search my name, Larry Fedoruk, and Later That Same Life, and you'll get to my YouTube channel. Although the podcast, it's also on Apple and Google and wherever you get your podcasts, Spotify, all those places too. So
thank you so much, Larry. Good to hear you again. Have yourself a good long weekend.
You as well, sir. Thank you, George. Thank you. That was not predetermined that George would allow me to shamelessly plug my podcast, but thank you for that, George. Here is, who do we have next here? It's Bob. Bob, go ahead. You're on 570 News Radio in the 12 o'clock Talkback Hour.
Hi, Larry.
Hey, go ahead.
Okay. Is it okay if we talk about something that we're talking about during the week?
Absolutely.
Okay. When Doug Ford said he thought people should have the right to defend themselves in their houses, that's one thing we thought about before he said, because not everybody can. I used to be fairly good at defending myself. And I was wondering if we thought about the stress that could put on people if they actually did hurt somebody. And one day would be charged if he used too much force, would go from self-defense to excessive force. I wonder how that would work into it, too. Have a good day, Larry.
All right, Bob. Yeah, I mean, I know not everybody can, but the idea is that if you defended yourself, and I don't remember the case specifically, I wish I had the details in front of me, but a guy who was under severe threat and fired shots at the intruders in his home and was later charged with using his weapon. Whereas the idea of the stand your ground or the defend your castle or whatever the law is called, defend your home law would be that in defense of your home, you wouldn't be charged with using force. Now, if you use excessive force, if a guy's already running away and you chase after him and shoot him dead on the street, then that wouldn't be part of that law, is my understanding. Like excessive force would still be a thing, even though you might be. It's the use of force in the context of defending your home, I think, was the suggestion, that we should have some kind of law similar to the laws they have in certain states in the U.S. Here's Terry. Terry, go ahead. You're on 570 News Radio.
Hey, hi, Larry. How are you?
I'm good, Terry. How are you?
Oh, not too bad on a nice day. Actually, a little better than it has been, humid-wise anyway.
Yeah, a little better.
Going back to that bike thing, I was in Detroit last summer, took in a couple of football games there, the UFL. And I was at a restaurant downtown Detroit just before the game, and I saw many of those party bikes go by. It looks like a hoot.
Really?
Yeah, it's shaped like a horseshoe. You got the guy in the lead pedaling, and then everybody else pedals, but they're kind of facing the bar. So I don't know how that works because the pedals are facing inward towards the bar. So, but yeah, not everybody's pedaling at the same time, and there's music playing. It looks like a lot of fun. I mean, if I wasn't so old, I'd probably take a kick at the can at that. But no, it looked like a lot of fun, and it'd be interesting to see if the Toronto adopts. I guess Doug Ford announces, so we'll be seeing how they adopt that as a tourist thing. But yeah, I don't know how you do it, Larry, living in Toronto. I was down there last weekend, and it's my God, it took me 4 hours just to get from Woodstock to downtown Toronto, and I drove to Yorkdale and then took the subway down. I mean, there was I don't know if you were aware that they had one of the lines were down last Saturday, so they only went as far as St. Clair West Station, and then from there you had to take shuttle buses down to downtown. But yeah, it was quite an adventure. So I don't know. Toronto's getting a little too busy. I don't know if there's room for those party bikes, but we'll see. Anyway, Larry, have yourself a great weekend. We'll talk again.
Always enjoyed the call, Terry. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, as far as Toronto, and as David Drew pointed out last hour on our panel, these pedal bikes, Toronto, what did he say? Toronto, Windsor, Niagara, and who am I missing there? Toronto, Windsor, Niagara. Missing one, but it wouldn't be Kitchener. So don't expect to see them in Kitchener-Waterloo. They're not in that area yet. But if it is of all those scenarios, I think a place like Niagara on the Lake, place like that would be interesting. A place like Toronto, I don't know. I mean, if you're downtown in any sort of busy urban area, I want to get away. I don't want a patio that's next to the street. I don't want to be on a bike drinking in the street. I want to be away from the noise and the hassle and everything. So if there's somewhere where it's more touristy and quiet and we're just pedaling around on a pedal pub, having a beer, I guess that could be kind of fun. But other than that, I mean, if you're on some of the busy streets, it's just going to add to the congestion. And people are already complaining about the congestion, as Terry pointed out, in a big urban area like that. But though licensing them for beverages is now got the go-ahead from the Ontario government, we won't be seeing them in Kitchener-Waterloo, at least probably this season. Anyway, it's the 12 o'clock Talkback Hour. What would you like to talk about? It's all on you. More of your calls in a moment. You're on 570 News Radio. Welcome back. I'm Larry Fedorkin from Mike Farwell. What do you want to talk about today? Is it Canada's birthday, Canada's new role in the world, as it seems, the pedal pub bicycles, Jeff Bezos' $55 million wedding, changes in Raptors head office, Ujiri out. Like, there's so many things out there. What else is on your mind? Here's Don. Don, go ahead. You're on the 12 o'clock Talkback Hour.
Hi, Larry.
Hey, Don.
I was listening earlier talking about the air conditioning in schools and, whatnot. And something I've never heard discussed is just putting basic fans in these old schools, like just a portable fan, moving some air and knocking down the humidity would go a long way to make it more, livable and whatnot. And I never hear anything about it. They always talk about the expense of retrofitting these old schools that are ready to fall down, like that Ziegler school is. So, I don't know. Have I missed something?
I don't think so. I agree totally with what you're saying, Don. Although this week I did hear some talk about fans, how in the one case where some parent donated a window air conditioner and they were forced to remove it.
Yeah.
I've heard of schools where people donate industrial size fans, and those are acceptable because all you have to do is plug those in. There's no infrastructure involved. And that some schools buying fans more so as a pretty easy fix, I think, to a problem that's going to be just a few days a year.
Well, it's probably too simple and too less costly than the board would want you to have.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'll leave it with you and see what other people might think. But I just think it's an obvious, because it's not like it's months of the year that we need air conditioning in schools,
Yeah.
Anyway.
And yeah, Don, great point. Thanks for the call, man. I just, I lucky I live in a building that has air conditioning, but they turn it on in the summer and off in the winter. And there's always often, not this year, but often there's a week in the autumn and there's a week in the spring where it's just way too hot and the air is either been turned off or it's not on yet, and you're sweltering and you're like, oh my God, how do people do this, all year without air conditioning? So 2 points. Number one, Don's idea, fans. That's how you get by those sweltering days, is the fan. And it's actually pretty good. for what it does. And more of that. Also starting the mentality of thinking that we're going to have more hotter weather unless we change our ways, and it doesn't look like we're going to. So we have to start thinking of the dangers of heat the same way we have cold. And that's not to say everybody gets air conditioning, but that everybody at least has access to it somehow. The cooling rooms, the malls, the civic centers, the libraries, etc. And that was the other thing. Is like, well, why don't you get at least an air conditioning in like a window air conditioner of some sort, or these portable air conditioners, get them into a library, and then during the hot days, everybody gets a class in the library and a class outdoors and a shorter day and a fan over here, and you make do. It's not like you have to do air conditioning, refit the whole school just to get through this. Mark, go ahead. You're on 570 News Radio.
Hi, Larry.
Hey, Mark.
Larry, what's up with the price of albums nowadays? I can't buy an album for under $50.
A vinyl disc music album?
Yeah.
I haven't seen one in a while. Now, mind you, where would you be going to that?
Well,
would you be going
there's a couple places. Encore Records is one.
Okay.
Another place on Scott Street. It's a small independence music store.
Okay.
But yeah, a brand new album, Larry, $50 and up. Some are over $200.
Jeez.
I can't believe it.
I mean, I've popped into a Sunrise once in a while. I think that's the last real chain that people still put out vinyl. I guess because they don't make a million of them. They only make a select few for the few people that still love vinyl. And because they're not mass produced, they're more expensive. That's my guess.
Yeah, like back in the day, Larry, my goodness, I was buying albums for $9 or $10.
Yeah.
But anyway, just throwing that at you, Larry.
Yeah, good point.
I remember that story when you threw all your albums out in the curb.
and they burnt down. That's the quick end to that story. Yeah. Mark, thanks for the call, man.
Have a great weekend, Larry.
You as well. There is a famous story about the price of albums that involves Tom Petty. Do I have time here? No, I should. We'll do traffic and weather, and then I'll come back and more of your calls, and we'll share the story of how albums were priced in the early days of Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. More in a moment on 570 News Radio. I'm Larry Fedoruk in for Mike Farwell. Mark was just calling, complaining about the cost of albums, vinyl albums. They're like $50 because they don't mass produce them anymore. So I guess people still put out vinyl. Very trendy to put out a vinyl version of your album. That's why it's so expensive. There's a famous story real quick. Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers working on their fourth album. And let's say, I don't remember the exact price points, but let's say albums in the day sold for $7.99. And the record executives came to Tom Petty and they said, we want to start charging more for all our albums. And we're going to start with your next album. Your next album is going to be $8.99 instead of $7.99. And Tom Petty said, please don't do that with my album because it's going to make it look like I'm trying to gouge my fans. Don't do that. Do it somewhere else, sometime else. And they're like, no, look at the contract. We have business control. Your album's going to sell for $8.99. Nothing you can do about it. So Tom Petty thought about it, came back, and he goes, so you would agree, though, that I have complete creative control of my album? And they went, yeah. He goes, okay, the name of the album is going to be $7.99. And they said, oh, okay, $7.99 it is. And the album was called Hard Promises. It's a great music story, and it's a great Tom Petty story, in my opinion. Who's next here? I think it's Tom. Let's go to Tom, and then we'll do a short break and get to all the other callers. Tom, go ahead.
Yeah, hi. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
My main concern is that they're going to be spending a lot of money on the military, which we don't need. You can get out of NATO. It's 150 million crazy, and another 100 billion for the planes, which will, by the time we get them, they're obsolete. The main concern I'm concerned with Canada is the fires, and we're not prepared. We don't have enough firefighters, and they're starting all over. Now they started to come to Ontario too, and this is the biggest problem. And please do not develop the north. You've done enough damage. Like, who's going to attack us? This is stupid. They say the Russians are coming, Chinese are coming, Iranians are coming. They're not coming nowhere. And Spain just got out of NATO, and more countries are going to get out. It's too much spending, and it's war machine, and Canada wants to make drones for Ukraine. I mean, any money you give to Ukraine, you're killing Ukrainians and you're killing Russians. So this is what they're doing. Just somebody should tell those guys to stop. So that's where I am.
Tom, thank you for that. And you've certainly opened up a lot of topics there. And let me address some of those when we get back after our news. This is 570 News.
Here's special guest host, Larry Fedoruk.
Getting back to more of your calls on the 12 o'clock Talkback Hour. First, I want to address Tom, who called just before the news break, addressing as quickly as I can some of Tom's concerns in defense spending, increased Canadian defense spending. And, oh, man, I agree everybody should stop spending on war machinery. Oh, my goodness. What if they threw a war and nobody came? That's ideal. That's lovely. It's impossible, unfortunately. I do think China and Russia are threats to the sovereignty of other nations, not so much Iran, but certainly beware that, China's moving into all kinds of countries like Mexico, Africa, many nations in Africa. As a matter of fact, have you ever heard of the BRICS alliance? That's Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. Kind of an evil G7, and we've got to spend money on NATO because we can't rely on the United States. And so we rely more on NATO, to which the United States is the biggest contributor. But we've got to form other allies, and we've got to contribute. I'll also say, Tom, Spain is not out of NATO. Spain is just saying we're not going to make that 5%, that new line of GDP spending. So there's new alliances. And the fact that we have a chance to spend wisely, like F-35s, by the time we get them, they'll be obsolete. Tom's right. Ukraine just wiped out hundreds of millions of U.S. aircraft with a few $1,000s worth of drones. It's true. The United States gave Ukraine these state-of-the-art tanks. They're $10 million each. They gave them like 30 of them. Almost all of them are non-functioning right now because of inexpensive Russian drones. As scary as it all is, it's new times of warfare. And we can spend money wisely and be more of a military power, including personnel, which is its own industry, that we can use personnel, not just boots on the ground, but using them nationally for forest fires and things like that. That I think defense industry spending is something we have to do. As much as all of us would love to say no more war anywhere, no need, that it's just not the way it's going to be. All right, so that's as quick as I can get through everything that Tom sort of dropped on us there. Here's Andre. Andre, go ahead. You're on the 12 o'clock Talkback Hour.
Hi, Larry.
Hey, Andre.
Yeah, it's just nice history you brought us there. But like Mike said, that Tom beating his drum on, but I do agree with Tom, and I do agree with Mike Farwell on this. So it's both sides. What do you choose, right? But it is hurtful when you see our country needs help, and food-wise or army-wise or whatever. But I do agree that we're not in threat. Canada is always a peaceful country. That's how I grew up. I had two cousins and a brother-in-law who were in Desert Storm in Afghanistan and whatever, And I since this started with Donald Trump, Larry, I truly don't believe, because I grew up with a lot of soldiers. especially for the professional they do, the training they do. One of my cousins, Mark, he was an alcoholic. His mom put him in the Army, and now he has a career, retired in Nova Scotia and all that stuff, you know what I mean? So, but what I'm trying to say is I never heard that a Canadian soldier could look at each other in the face with an American soldier and say, hey, you know what, we need to kill each other. That will never happen. Like, we're still America. Unfortunately, war, I think it's more economy, it's all about the money. So sadly, the world is changing, with, like you said, Chinese and Russia and all that. But am I afraid of it? No, I'm not, because kind of like you said earlier in your segment, you live in the present. And that's the most important thing. It keeps you sane. Another thing, Larry, if you don't mind, is I love the 4-panel, especially with David Drew and Tricia. I'd like to see one day something like Dorothy McCabe, what's her name, Catherine Fife is in Waterloo.
Okay, yeah.
And Rob Deutschman, make it a little tough for them after the holidays. I'd like to see that. I really love passionately who they are, and they're professional and they speak very characteristic. I really love that, and I trust in them. And about the game thing at the odd, very, very, very well said that it's not a sport, but it's something that this is a new generation thing. My son, he's 10, and he's into it too, and just like other kids, and they socialize like crazy. And it's about the parent to say, hey, you know what, like what other things you would like to do? And he's into soccer, or he goes to the park, does swimming, you know what I mean? So it's all about balance. But I'll talk to you on Monday, Larry. And
all right, man. Thank you. Covering a lot of ground as always. Andre on the 12 o'clock Talkback Hour. There's a Nobel laureate in literature, a French philosopher from the 50s named Albert Camus. And one of his most famous sayings is, see if I can get this right, do not walk in front of me, I may not follow. Do not walk behind me, I may not lead. Just walk beside me. Walk beside me and be my friend. And I feel like Canada has walked beside the world for most of its existence, at least 20th and 21st century existence. And that has been our role. And now I think we have to walk ahead and let some people follow. I think we have to take a lead, which involves things like military and defense. Unfortunately, it does. But and I think we have the right guy to represent us at this point, and we have to take that lead. If you take the top 10, and Andre said, war is about money, follow the money. It's true. Usually the acquisition of land and resources and things like that, and money. So if you take the top economies, the top monies in the world, the top 10 economies, Brazil's at number 10, Canada's at number 9. If you take out China and India, the remaining 7 economies are something called the G7. They have a group, they have an alliance, they have a partnership. And that's powerful. And who is the power within the G7? Kind of the US, but kind of unreliable right now. And the other members are 4 nations in Europe and an island in the Pacific. Who's right here next door to the power by geography, unable to move? Right here, Canada. It's another reason we have to walk ahead and let people follow right now. My thoughts. How about yours? 12 o'clock Talkback Hour continues in a moment. 570 News Radio. Larry Fedoruk in for Mike Farwell. Little Tom Petty there just to get us back to that Tom Petty story of creative control over business control, back to the Hard Promises album. So if you missed the story, I'm not going to repeat it because I just told it like 10 minutes ago. So if you Google the story of how Tom Petty fought for the price of his albums, it's a cool little story. Just elevates the legacy of Tom Petty for me, who I was a big admirer of. Anyway, loved his music and had a chance to see him. Can't remember the year exactly, but they had Crosby, Stills, and Nash open for them. And I was like, Crosby, Stills, and Nash, this is going to be terrible because I love them so much and they're going to be old and decrepit and sound terrible and I'm going to be so disappointed and it's going to ruin the memory. Maybe I'll show up late. So we go and they were fantastic. Crosby, Stills, Nash, like they had not lost a beat, not a minute. Their voices were incredible. It's so good. Only thing better would have been if Neil Young was with them, which he wasn't. And then Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, who were excellent, of course. So I'm glad I had a chance to see them. Anyway, all that for what? Here's Grant. Grant, go ahead. You're on the 12 o'clock Talkback Hour.
Yeah, I wasn't in a call, but when you did that quote, I'm going to have you right by my side.
All right, sir. Well, I'm it's not like I made that up. I'm quoting another very brilliant person who talked about walk beside me and be my friend. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I like that. I don't know if you watch these talent shows that are on TV, America's Got Talent. Do you at all?
I when I come across clips on the web, I watch them. I don't watch the shows.
Yeah, there was this lady a couple weeks ago that did this in 3 stages, where she was throwing football to hoops. And when I saw that, I thought, well, maybe Aaron Rodgers, or maybe Pittsburgh could use her because her throws were right on, and she seemed to have a better arm. And I don't follow football all that much. All I know is Rodgers is kind of injured, and he's a has-been. You might as well get Mick Jagger, right?
Yeah. The internet is so cruel to Aaron Rodgers right now. They have pictures of him in the Steelers uniform and he's on crutches, or he's in a wheelchair, or he's got a long white beard down to his knees, nobody, I think, likes this Pittsburgh pick of signing Aaron Rodgers, I think.
Well, when you said that beard, it made me think of this guy that they were showing today on the news, that liver guy that's after Joe Rogan, or I don't know if you've ever heard of this liver man guy.
No, I don't know where you're going with that. Sorry, but go ahead.
Yeah, just Google liver man. Apparently he looked like he was very normal, but now he's gotten a little nutty. He's going after Joe Rogan, harassing him or something, or threatening him.
Joe Rogan?
Yeah, Joe Rogan. That's right.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Well, okay. I'll look that up.
Yeah, sure. All right. Have a good long weekend.
Hey, man. You too. Thanks, Grant. Always when I'm filling in for Mike, always like, gee, I hope I hear from Grant. As I'm sure Mike does, but I hear from Grant. It kind of puts the parentheses on the show for me, in that if I haven't heard from Grant, it's like, why haven't I heard from Grant? And then when I hear from Grant, I'm like, there, I've heard from Grant. There we go. Let me give out the phone numbers before the break here, and we'll see if we can get a few more of your calls in on the 12 o'clock Talkback Hour. Am I pushing it here if I take this call now? Let's go now. Here's Sophia. Sophia, go ahead.
Yes. I am from Europe, and I know very good what is going on in Europe. I think my family, so this is his big mistake, Carney do, be friend with Europe. Who is European Union? they take money from this every country. What is wrong right now? A smaller country want to run away from Union because they make a poor Union in Brussels. They only live very good. The rest of people poor and more poor. And Canada better stay with America. America always help. Ale Europe never help. Like Europe can help Ukraine. That is big mistake Mark Carney do. They not work for us Canadian people. Thank you.
Thank you, Sophia. Boy, I got some thoughts on that. Right, we're going to get our traffic and weather together. Come back, more of your calls, more on Sophia's thoughts as well on 570 News Radio. Be right back. $12 Talkback Hour. I'm Larry Fedorkin from Mike Farwell. Here's Terry once again. Hey, Terry.
Hey, Larry, I apologize for calling back, but going back to what Grant was saying regarding Aaron Rodgers, don't believe everything you hear or read about him in the sports media, because this general sports media doesn't like him because he doesn't kiss their ass. So is he what he was? Is he what he was 10 years ago? No, but he is old now, older.
Yeah, who is?
But he is the best option that the Steelers have. So don't buy into that crap. You just the sports media's got it out for him. So anyway, Larry, have a good weekend. Thanks for taking.
All right, man.
Okay,
Thank you. Getting to what Sophia was talking about, Canada joining the EU, or at least aligning with the EU. There was actually talk of us joining the EU. Because can you imagine that? Sophia, I get your point. The EU is a block. The EU, in my opinion, is a work in progress. Is it perfect? It's far from right now, but it's all the economies of Europe said we're better off as at least being able to present as one economy against things like, huge forces like the USA and China than we are as 30 different little economies. And that's it. And Canada, we're not the EU, but we're a member of the G7. We're a member of the G20. We're a member of NATO and the IMF and the WTO and the United Nations. And we have 15 international trade agreements that we've signed on to. I mean, because it's about partnerships. And when our partner that we're geographically attached to, we can't cut ourselves off and float over and join Europe. We're here. There's no doubt about it. Geographically, we're here and we can't move. But when the United States, and who's to say that it's not going to happen again? Just so let's say they get rid of Trump and it's some guy and we're friends again. That cat's out of the bag, that the United States can use its own hegemony as a bargaining chip and pull its support and add its support to nations on a whim. And if that's our friend and neighbor that we can't rely on, then we better have some other friends that we can rely on that won't necessarily be our neighbors, because that's impossible, as I said. So I don't know, man. I've always felt more identified or identifying with Europe than I ever have with the United States, because we're part of the Commonwealth as well. We're a constitutional monarchy. Those are our roots in England and France. The nation's roots are in England and France. I grew up Ukrainian. I always felt that we were Eastern European, not Russian, even though when Ukraine was an SSR. I think there's a huge identity for Canada with Europe, and I don't think it's a mistake to build on that right now in the world. Anyway, but Sophia, thanks for the call. And thanks for listening today. I'll be back Monday for Mike Farwell. We'll talk soon.